Good morning. It is week 8. This is the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. I'm Nate Markham. Joining me is Hollywood Titan and Jorge Edwards. Let's get it started. Yeah, you don't have Gator J this morning hosting this the show. He is probably still drinking away the sorrow from the 43-20 whooping that Georgia put on Florida. But then again, I don't know. Does anybody know what the spread for that particular game was? Was it 23? Could have been. Wouldn't shock me.
But not off the top of my head, no. But feeling
I won't say it was 14 and a half, but I don't think it's right.
I don't feel sad for Gator J because Florida sucks. Go Terps, even though, let's face it, they just lost to Northwestern. So I'm not really in a position to talk. So
yeah, we can't say much. It's I don't really have the benefit of whatnot. And honestly, I don't even care. I'm not an SEC person. So they can beat each other up all they want. It won't matter because at the end of the day, they will still have a representative probably in the championship because, well, it's the SEC. Well, this is Fantasy and Frames pregame show. Welcome in. If you never joined us before, get ready for 3 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever it may be. Football talk where we answer your start set questions, go over game to game situations of all things involved from both offense to IDP. So, fellas, let me ask you one question. It's Halloween season right now. You are handing out candy bars to your trick-or-treaters. Do you hand out any full-size candy bars?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
And how many trick-or-treaters do you get there in Backwoods, Tennessee? Do you get 2? Do they let children out in your neighborhood? Or do you have one of those signs on your door that says
in the neighborhood?
I'm kidding.
Not technically in the neighborhood. I have to go to a trick or trunk and then dress up as this guy.
Oh, boo. I hate trunk or treat. I know that's
I've never been.
Well, I do it for work, and we get like probably 300 or 400 kids.
Yeah, I know. And that's the benefit because people are, they don't want to let their kids walk around anymore. And I respect that for that reason. But I don't know, something about, going door to door and being that as a kid. I know times have changed. So maybe that's old curmudgeon Nate here talking. But I don't know. I like the idea of what?
Is that not a thing anymore? Kids don't go trick-or-treating around the neighborhoods nowadays?
They do, just not nearly as much. The trunk or treat has definitely taken the world by storm. And I guess it's a more safe, protected environment that you're in. And, but then again, I also knew parents that when I was at the hospital on trick-or-treat night, they would bring their bags in and they would have us x-ray their bags to make sure there were no needles or anything. Let me tell you, and all the time. You never remember people saying, being the scare tactic, oh, you might find needles in your candy. And
well, I remember that, but I've never heard of anybody taking it to a hospital to be scanned.
Yeah, every year there would be. I can't say there was a ton, but there was enough that it's memorable. And I can tell you,
if the hospital and something getting scanned, it ain't going to be candy.
Right? Yeah, but it was, and there was never a needle in sight.
So speaking of candy, 1 year I got a pizza cutter and it was like a plastic pizza cutter, but it looked like a piece of candy, and like the rolling part looked like it was like a candy, like a piece of licorice. And so I opened the thing and I literally took a bite of the pizza part of the pizza rolling part, thinking that it was just like an intricate candy design. No, it was actually a pizza cutter. So that was
goddamn. All right, I love candy. I don't know if I love candy enough to eat utensils with the intent thinking it's candy, but I do. So Albert wants to know, what is your favorite Halloween candy? If you're going to go and you have the basket and the parents, you're now little child, Daryl and little Jorge, and you get to go up and they have the entire gambit. and they say you take one and one only. These are full-size candy bars because they're, nice people. Which are you taking? So I guess we can separate it into two. You going chocolate or you're going like non-chocolate variety?
Chocolate.
Hollywood? See, I'm probably a non-chocolate person. So then, all right, so narrow that down.
God, you're so weird.
Let
Sorry.
me guess. You're a Twizzlers person. Is that Nate? No?
Oh, I
Yes.
am.
He's
I like
probably over digging for candy corn.
I actually, you know what? Don't hate candy corn as much as the others. That's mostly Carrie's fault. She loves candy. That's her favorite candy. It's candy corn. So be careful what you say.
She's good people. She's allowed to get away with that.
That's true. I only like it because of her. She's a bad influence. But yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say though, because you know what? If a person had a $100,000 bar for handing out, I would have a hard time saying no to that because that's like a special treat. What do you guys? Are you basic bitches? Are you just gonna go straight to the Snickers or Reese's or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely I'll basic bitch mark out candy bar for Reese's. But if there was a Fifth Avenue chocolate peanut butter wafer bar, I would send them a card saying thank you for having so much awesome candy options to choose from.
Holy shit. Jorge's trick-or-treating back in 1987 again, too. So it's fitting for the time. On Fifth Avenue bar. Good God.
Those are great.
There goes. Yeah, there goes about 15 viewers right now. So Hollywood, save some of the viewers and tell them it's Twix or Snickers or, God forbid, if you say Three Musketeers, we're stopping this bitch right now.
Actually, I'm looking to see if they have a full roll of Rolos because those are the best.
Rolos are solid. God,
how is that old enough? But a Fifth Avenue bar is.
Don't trust me. I hadn't gotten there yet. Rolo is, but
technically, I'm looking for the biggest value.
You think our pack of Rolos
the most
is the biggest
candy?
value?
Yeah, in this one grab, what's the most candy? So if it's
gonna be a bag
of like Hershey bars, I'm getting.
Yeah, it's gonna be a full bag of Skittles. Like I'm gonna grab, and you're gonna get tons more value.
I'll take those too. I love Skittles.
And you just talk shit. Okay, whatever. You know what? Let's talk football because clearly candy tastes cannot be trusted here at Fantasy and Frames. But maybe the football takes can be, and we pretty much jump right in. First game on the slate. And also before we start, make sure if you are listening on Twitter or following on Twitter, jump over to the YouTube page. So that way, when you ask questions, we can see them because I'm sure we will have plenty of good start-sit questions on a full slate of games today. No bye weeks. Los Angeles Rams, Dallas Cowboys, first game on the slate. Cowboys are 6-point favorites and a 45.5-point over. There's nobody out in this game that's of significant value as far as injuries. It's probably one of the cleaner games on the slate. But will we see clean quarterback play? And that's the question. So Matthew Stafford, who has 0 QB1 weeks on the season, which is kind of surprising, right, guys? Because it seems like the Rams are an offense that have been moving, and they seem to be scoring at a high pace. And I know it's not necessarily as a result of Stafford's passing. We saw that inconsistency in the rush to receiving ratio in terms of touchdowns. But despite all that, Stafford does have that week one upside we see week in and week out, especially with the receivers back. Dak, on the other hand, he has one, which was just recently. Hollywood, are you streaming? And again, no bye week. So stream worthy means you have to start him over probably someone that you normally would start. Either one of those stream worthy or either of those starters in your mind this week.
I mean, I'm sure they're probably stream worthy considering some of the quarterbacks we see get pushed out there. If I had to pick one though, I'd probably pick Dak, and I don't even like saying that because I think he's just got the better receiving core all around.
Yeah, and I mean it's not like the Rams defense has been super stingy to opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers. Jorge, what do you think?
Yeah, I would probably also roll Dak because more so of his rushing upside. that he's been showing lately. That being the case, I like the Rams receiving core better than Dallas because Matthew Stafford at least knows how to utilize his weapons there. It's the end zone production though that I don't understand for Matthew Stafford over the course of the season. That I don't get it. I'm not super excited about starting either of these, but if I had to pick one, it'd be Dak this week, coming off of that one game performance where he was a QB1. So
this is an interesting little fact of the game. This is the Cowboys' only home game in a 41-day span. So interesting. It'd be nice to get back home, kind of that first sleep in your bed when you return from vacation, or in this case, just being away. So it'd be interesting. Anthony, welcome in this any 3 IDP league. Frankie Louvu, Devondre Campbell are free agents, and I am embarrassed that I don't know.
I think he's talking about Kenneth Murray, Cameron Curl, Jerome Baker, and Danielle Hunter are on his team, and he's asking if he's going to swap in Louvu or Devondre Campbell for either of those.
Well, I'm asking what T2TA
I think total. I think solo tackle 2, assisted tackle 1.
Aha, yes, that's exactly what it is. 2-1, and sacks worth 5.
Yeah, there we go.
Gotcha.
Well,
That's very.
It's like its own almost binary code of talking about. I mean, I like it.
I love it and we understand it. That's great. I was like, you were much smarter than I. I was like, you can't fuck up that bad. But yeah, so Louvu with the injury concerns throughout the week. If he's healthy, I'm starting him over Jerome Baker. Devondre, I don't know if I want to start yet.
Yeah.
But man, I like the matchups for Murray, Danielle Hunter, as Hollywood said, and Cameron Curl. So I think that my question would just be someone over Jerome Baker. And that's just because the inconsistencies that, I mean, Jerome Baker has been playing better as of late. Started off slow, but he's been really making progress as of late. And it's just that whole with Jalen Phillips, Van Ginkel then moves inside, cut some of the playing time out of David Long for the most part. But I'll let you guys make the final call. You picking up either one of those two and starting them over anybody? Hollywood, start you.
I think I'm waiting another week to see. And then if Campbell's back and like we're used to seeing, then I'd probably pick him up over Murray or Baker. No way I'm getting rid of Hunter. Not at 5 sacks a pop. 5 points a sack.
No, yeah, absolutely not. Totally agree. Yeah. Jorge?
Yeah, I would take Louvu over Baker. But again, I agree with you guys. Devondre Campbell, even when he's been healthy, which has been like one game? No, Hollywood put up. Sorry. I'm just not. It's a wait and see thing with Devondre Campbell. So yeah, I would take Louvu over Jerome Baker in this situation.
Gotcha. So, yeah, thank you, Anthony, for the question. Malcolm, good morning. David Mayo, Drew Tranquil, sneaky good starts in IDP. Tranquil guaranteed yes for me. I think that's a very good start. He's been, when he's filled in for Bolton in the past, he's been successful. That last game against Denver, notwithstanding, he had a sack in that matchup. He was limited snaps, so it's hard to say, but I'm fine with that. David Mayo, though, I'll let you answer since Malcolm is wise enough to know this. Let's talk to the Commanders and the Chiefs fans. I'll let you handle David Mayo, and I'll get Drew Tranquil.
Yeah, we saw Mayo's tackle efficiency when he came in last week be rather high when Cody Barton returned to the field after injury, but then realized he couldn't keep going. He's definitely going to get the uptick in sacks there. Snaps, not sacks, snaps for Washington alongside Jamin Davis. I can see, good. Yeah, yes, I think you phrased the question fantastic. Are they sneaky good starts? Yes, I think Mayo is a good start. this week. Am I thrilled? Ask me after this week going forward. But I think both Tranquil higher upside than Mayo, I think. Although this game is going to be played in what is 14 inches of snow or whatever they're saying. I don't know what that does anything to really hurt his value.
And that's blown out of proportion too. There's no weather after I've checked it this morning, and it's the snow pretty much has stopped already. They have 3-mile-an-hour winds, so it's not 30-mile-an-hour winds like there was like people have been alluding to. So I think that's kind of a little out. There will be snow, but that has no bearing to me on Tranquil necessarily.
Roger that. Got another question here from Albert.
So Albert, pick 2, full point PPR. DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Nico Collins. Good problem to have, but you're picking 2. So, all right, Jorge. Yeah. We have DK in what I would say is a challenging matchup against Cleveland for sure.
Yeah.
Nico against in a Carolina matchup that is very, very enticing. And DJ Moore with very enticing matchup, bad quarterback play.
Yeah.
Which weighs out for you? Like, I have a hard time not starting DK, but what do you think?
So I'm definitely starting Nico Collins.
Yep.
Just because, what do you call it? The Carolina Panthers were really bad in zone coverage, according to PFF. Nico Collins and Tank Dell, for that matter, have a huge average depth of target when facing zone coverage. Have been pretty successful against zone coverage. That Chicago matchup there, I understand the I don't know. It's not the greatest matchup. Zone coverage 11th best. The Chargers, that is, that they'll be facing. But you got, I don't know, for PPR, I think you got to trust the target volume there, knowing he's going to zero in on one of his best receiving options, if not his best receiving option, referring to Tyler Badgett. So I don't know. I think I'm rolling with DJ Moore and Nico Collins in this situation.
Yeah, I would do the same. I hate not starting DK just because we know the upside there, but Cleveland's so tough, and that pressure on Geno could result in just short to intermediate work. There's been a little bit of banged up play here and there, but yeah, I'm comfortable with that. DJ Moore 30%, target percentage last week with Tyler Badgett. So I mean, even if it's not massive yardage, because it's a little short to intermediate. We saw that with DJ Moore earlier in the season, is that he's capable of taking even a short, shitty ball from Justin Fields to the house. He can do the same thing here with Badgett. So, all right. Kevin has a question. Pick 2 full point PPR as well. We have Jordan Addison, Drake London, Hollywood Brown, Chris Olave. Another plethora of riches here. Who's one? Is there a guaranteed for you, Jorge?
Yeah, Jordan Addison for me has reached must-start status. So if he's on your roster, you're starting Jordan Addison. If Kyler Murray was back there and Kyler Murray was stepping on the field facing against zone coverage with Hollywood Brown, I would be super stoked for Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown, I think, actually does have a decent matchup if just you weren't concerned about the quarterback play. So it really comes down to, do you trust inconsistent Derek Carr or rising in performance in terms of passing the ball, Desmond Ridder? I think I'm going to read London here in this matchup and roll with Atlanta, even though it's Tennessee, the secondary, they just lost Kevin Byard, so now you have them scrambling at defensive back and coverage. What are we going to do? I don't know who's going to be the one calling plays now. I don't know who's what are we going to make. So yeah, give me London and Addison here.
Yeah, that's the second. Like Addison, I think I'm gonna just bank on as well. Like you said, the touchdown volume or the touchdowns have been there consistently, and I do like the matchup. But that second one, it's like, golly, Chris Olave. This is that prime game for him to really step up as far as the zone coverage that he should be facing and his propensity to beat that. It just screams this is the Chris Olave game that you were hoping for, especially considering how much Derek Carr's passed over the last. I mean, he has 105 complete attempts over the last two games, plural, which is the most in the NFL. I mean, I think I'm going to, you know what? I might lean Olave and Addison, and London is right. Golly, that second one's really tough, man. And I'm sorry for this, that we're just going back and forth and not really answering the quiz. That making that decision is a tough one. So I think that we'll say, Addison and then choose between London and Olave. Yeah.
I don't think you can go. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those two. To be honest with you, I mean, if the difference is 1 or 2 points, then I think you're in a good spot.
And I agree with that. And that's where I have them basically in my rankings is within 1 or 2 spots from each other too. So good luck this week. Looks like you won't read too much of luck because that's a pretty good stat, receiving core for sure. Going back to this first game on the slate, Jorge, we know Matthew Stafford, we know Dak. The confusion part here is what Tony Pollard will we see? Because here's a Rams team that's allowing the 12th most yards rushing. Pollard's a must start, but he only has one top 20 finish in the past 4 weeks. You think this is the rebound game for him? Do you think this is where we see the Tony Pollard that we're expecting?
Do I think this is the rebound game? I mean, you don't like the defensive interior situation for Los Angeles, right? Nobody likes running up against, Darren Wall or Aaron Donald, right? The linebacking core is a little suspect. Here's my issue with Pollard, right? One of the reasons why we all got so hyped up on Tony Pollard is because of his work in the receiving game. And, aside from that missed tackle where he took it to the house 2 weeks ago against the Chargers, what big plays have we really been seeing in the receiving game from Tony Pollard from a week-to-week basis? That's my concern. And I'm glad you use the term must start. Maybe my view of how to say, a person's a worthy start, must start, whatever you want to call it. Must start probably because you don't have a better running back option. Sure. I can get that. But it doesn't feel like a must start, based off of the production that you've been seeing. You're just hoping that they catch lightning in a bottle and they turn it around. Yeah, man, I guess you just got to roll with Tony Pollard in this matchup and just see what happens. You hope that the Cowboys have taken the bye week to address, what's going on offense. You saw them involve Brandon Cooks, for crying out loud, 2 weeks ago, finally, in this offense. So maybe they're starting to turn the corner and you're going to see all the phases of the Cowboys offense finally start clicking. So, I mean, yeah, so from that regard, thinking about that from that positive aspect, I feel comfortable starting Tony Pollard.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I mean, when it's a top 14 running back on the season, at what point, would you ever not put him in your life? Like, even if he's playing the most difficult matchup, would you ever get cute enough to say, hey, I'm not starting a top 12, top 14 running back?
Yes.
Really?
I would get cute. Not to top 14.
That's where he's at.
Let me pull up his past few weeks here, because I like to. So Chris Battistel over on Fourth and Frames, he mentioned on Wednesday he likes to look at things from 3-week increments, and actually so do I. So when I'm thinking about this, I mean, Tony Pollard in the past 3 weeks in half PPR, he's nowhere in the top 12, top 14.
He's had a bye week, and
that has helped. I mean, he's 36 with averaging 10.2 a game.
Yeah, with the bye.
With the bye, yeah, I understand. I see your point. I see what you're saying.
Well, I just don't know.
I don't like it, but it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm. So you're not starting Austin Eckler in any situation then?
No.
He's averaging 3 points a game, basically.
Yeah, but I trust the Chargers offense to get more on track faster than I do the Cowboys up. I trust Kellen Moore more than Mike McCarthy to get that situation sorted out more so than I do McCarthy and his play calling.
That is fair. That is fair. As far as the Ram side of the ball, this is the trust factor that will have to be established in Odell Henderson. So 58% snap share basically off the streets, 58% snap share, 60% of the attempts. Dallas has allowed 4.2 yards per attempt. So it's not like they've been as stingy as they've been as far as, rushing the passer and keeping short to intermediate work. Do you feel good with Henderson as your RB2/flex against Dallas?
Am I putting him as in leagues that I have him in? Am I putting in my RB2? Yes. Do I like it? No. I mean, this guy got reverted back to the practice squad this week and was only activated to the active roster yesterday. What does that mean?
Nothing.
I don't. You don't think so? You don't think there's like a little?
Nothing. You were allowed on a season 4 practice squad moves to secure the player so they can't get executed, and that gives you flexibility to be able to move other players around. That's what the official statement as far as why the move was. It was a pure, yeah. It wasn't because it was I didn't know that at first either. So don't let my
well, I said I don't know what that meant, but when I see that, I'm like, so correct. Royce Freeman gets the roster spot, but Darrell Henderson doesn't. I don't know. I just found that interesting. If that's the case, if that's all it was, and it was just technicality to get around for moving around roster positions, then yeah, I'm pretty happy with Darrell Henderson as my RB2 this week. We saw him be productive last week. Which you really like to see in terms of him being able to stay on the field more is his blitz pickup was outstanding last week. So of course quarterbacks and offensive coordinators are going to want to keep the running back on the field who can pass protect more. I know that has nothing to do really with fantasy football, but staying on the field more does. So yeah, I'm pretty excited with Henderson this week as my RB2.
Yeah, I was a little confused with that too when I saw him relegated back to the practice squad. It immediately raised flags to the point where I think that it wouldn't have been shocking to see people throw trade offers out for or against Henderson in the concern that they weren't going to do anything. And thank you, Chris. My Halloween decorations. I was gonna get a T Swift back there for Travis so they could go together, since that's I guess the most popular costume in the world right now for adult Halloween parties. I've seen too many of them. It's great. It's Nathan's question. He has to, and we're seeing when it's bye week free, the wide receiver questions will be heavy because there's a lot, especially in the pick 2, where in a standard league, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers, Deontay Johnson, Rashee Rice, Zay Flowers. So I, for one, know I'm going to go with Zay Flowers just simply because anytime that amount of usage and workload is set and guaranteed, and I'm comfortable with that. My number 2, I'm going to hear your reasoning and see if maybe that can sway my opinion or if I'm still leaning the direction I'm thinking.
Is Garoppolo back this week? Do we know?
Yes.
Then it's Jacoby Myers. Yeah, it's Jacoby Myers. Standard league, I'm not worried about peppering. Although, and then you mentioned the weather situation shouldn't be a concern for Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, I feel like, is right below. You know what? Let me take that back. Downs and Rashee Rice for me are kind of like neck and neck, to be honest with you. So for me, it would go, I'm with you with Flowers, then Myers, Downs/Rice, and then Deontay Johnson. Although we saw Deontay Johnson return last week, and again, shocking, all he was missing was a touchdown. Tell me if you heard that before, in terms of fantasy production, being able to have like a really awesome game. But again, then during the week, he has a hamstring injury that's kept him out for most of the season. So
exactly,
it's that's where I would have it. But Garoppolo's back. Give me Jacoby Myers and Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Jacoby. I do like Josh Downs. I mean, dude, he leads his team and basically, especially in like I was looking, and I give a shout out to Derek Brown from Fantasy Pros. His breakdown of the zone versus man coverage information week to week is very useful and concise, and so I will use a lot of his information in here because it coincides with what we think, given in this specific matchup. The Saints use a ton of man coverage, and Josh Downs is just destroying man coverage. And it's like, God, I love the matchup, especially against Alante Taylor, who's banged up and he allows plenty of catches. But again, it comes to that standard situation. I think Jacoby Myers is just a shade ahead. So I'll agree with you there. It's Myers and Flowers for me. So,
and you know what's also important is that the fact that this is a standard league. You look at yards after the catch. Rashee Rice and Josh Downs are right after each other with 120 and 116 yards. So you're getting the yardage bonuses there on top of the average up the target.
Yeah, the concern I have with Rashee Rice is like I have every week is he still doesn't see the workload that the others are, and so the variance of ceiling versus floor is probably too wide of a gap for me for Rashee Rice week in and week out, at least to give my advice where people come back. And so far in 8 weeks, we haven't had anybody come back and say, you two are a bunch of dipshits. You cost me a week because you were wrong. People are either really nice, as they probably should be. I wouldn't do it, but maybe that's positive. So we just have the nicest listeners. That's what it is. Let's get back to this Rams game. So here's a fun fact. Dallas hasn't allowed multiple wide receivers to score double-digit points in a single game. They've given up double-digit to one, but never to both or two wide receivers in the same matchup. That's what we would hope for, one out of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. What we saw last week and the week before is that they take turns alternating between who's going to really be kind of the superior one and then good volume for the other. Will you go with Koopa and Puka? Maybe not on the same lineup, but both are wide receiver 1/2s this week, or even 3s if you really want to get too far.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to have. You're starting Cooper Kupp no matter what. I think he can beat any coverage. Shout out to Drew, who's a huge Rams fan. Who that's not the reason I'm saying that. I'm saying it because it's true. Puka Nacua. I think he's reached must-start status. Who I do like, though, in this matchup is Tutu Atwell. I know, you were talking about snaps and how he's been taking, obviously, fewer since Cooper Kupp has gone back. But you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they rank 29th in zone coverage. And we're looking at targets in terms of the wide receivers when playing versus zone. Puka Nacua, in terms of routes run on the season, has 205. Right behind him is Tutu Atwell with 190, with a target rate of 15.3%. He leads the team in air yardage percentage, second. So I'm if I'm looking for an upside play, I could see why Tutu Atwell would be a good play this week also. But again, pure upside play, flex play, multiple flex positions. Yeah, I'm throwing him in there. But for me, I agree with the Cooper Kupp and Puka. You have to start.
Yeah, and you said his air yards. He's where?
He's second. His air yardage percentage is number one on the team versus zone coverage with 76.9%.
In specific.
Yeah, gotcha. Versus zone, which is where the Cowboys are deficient at when it comes to coverage, being 29th in the league.
Gotcha. I'll say you touched on it. That was my concern with him is with the target percentage of 14%, 5%, and 8% with Cooper Kupp returning. That just doesn't scream safety, but I understand and respect, the zone coverage information that you've obtained because there is validity in that. And so I will never poo-poo on Tutu because as soon as I do, he catches 2 balls and scores a touchdown and you go into the Slack chat and say Tutu Atwell, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point.
Oh.
And it's
sorry, continue.
No. It's if that's the type of advice that you want to give to people, is rely on a touchdown for a team that has one of the lowest passing touchdown percentage marks. Go ahead, Ori, put your stamp on there.
I'm going to put my stamp on it. I think Tutu has a decent fantasy for today against the matchup versus zone coverage. Let's go. Let's go Tutu Atwell. I'm glad you mentioned the Slack chat. So we use Slack here at Fantasy and Frames to communicate with all of our team members, to coordinate all sorts of stuff, as well as just have a great conversation. And two of our writers here, Preston Evans and Chris Burns, are doing something that Nate Markham and I did a few years ago, which was have a pie bet over a take. And so Nate and I, we did one over two IDP players, Keanu Neal and Jeremy Chen. Mm-hmm. But this week it's going to be a little bit more broad, because Preston Evans is a Pats fan, Chris Burns is a Dolphins fan. So next week on the show, on the pregame show, the loser of today's matchup will get a pie in the face, which if you haven't seen our pie in the face video, go back and watch it. It is hilarious. So definitely calling them out. Both of you all will be on the show next week taking a pie. One of you all will be taking a pie in the face. So really excited to see that happen.
I can't wait. We can maybe at some point during this episode, Jorge, you and I might have a disagreement, and we might be able to make something. But I'm guessing it won't be on the wide receivers for the Dallas Cowboys, because I see it as CeeDee Lamb only. You may see it differently. Are you starting with confidence anybody else on that Dallas Cowboys? No. Michael Gallup, a picture to throw up yet? Don't even look for it. Nope.
Scrolling to upload image file.
Yes, and I will loot you off the screen. Let's go to let's get to KJ. KJ has a question. Deontay Foreman, Roshan, or Chuba? That is in a full point PPR. So clearly, between Foreman and Roshan, what do you see happening in that game? We'll get to Chicago here in a little bit too, which is later on. But Roshan's back, but do you think he's back with more than a 20% of the opportunities in Chicago? They ease him in, or do you think he's full go and it's more of a split?
You look at let's look at all three for a second. So let's go back to Chuba. If Miles Sanders wasn't starting, I think Chuba for me would be the start in this situation, personally speaking, just because of the matchup. Now, but we're looking at split backfield with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard this week. You mentioned a very good point with the split situation potentially between Foreman and Roshan. Mm-hmm. If I had to get one of these, I think I'd still roll with Foreman. We saw the productivity last week. We saw the receiving upside last week. More importantly, you saw the chemistry develop between Badgett and Deontay Foreman. Roshan Johnson coming off of the concussion, 2 weeks missed game. That screams ease back into a workload, not just give them the full go right off the start.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I would do Deontay Foreman this week, and if we're wrong and you have Roshan next week, then at least you have a positive to gain from that, is that you have one piece. The worst case scenario is that it's a 50-50 split going forward for that offense. But good luck, KJ. Anthony has one more question, which is, would you start Calvin Ridley or Rashee Rice? Now, I would probably go back to the Calvin Ridley well, and I don't know if that's dangerous or not, but I'm going back to Ridley. Yourself?
Yeah, it's I'm not happy doing it. One fantasy point for me and half PPR scoring last week for Ridley. Yeah, that I'm not happy doing it, but I'm doing it this week versus Pittsburgh. Yeah. Only 2 games with more than 40 yards for Ridley. So there's definitely some boom or bust, but I think that the likely of the boom is there, especially against Pittsburgh defense that can be susceptible at times. So talked about Dallas. Jake Ferguson appears to be back in our tight end one good graces this week after the bye, and some of the down weeks against a good opportunity against the Rams. But let's get to the defensive side of the ball.
IDP wise, Jorge, what are you looking at for the Dallas Cowboys?
So, you brought up a very good point when we were talking before the show, the whole Micah Parsons versus the left tackle for the Los Angeles Rams, Alaric Jackson, who the past 3 weeks has allowed 11 pressures, a sack, quarterback hit. That's no bueno. So Parsons should have a day for him. On the other side of the ball, other side of the line, DeMarcus Lawrence has a tougher matchup with Rob Havenstein, excuse me. Although Havenstein hasn't exactly been great either, 6 pressures allowed for a sack, but it's definitely Parsons. And not to mention, Parsons can lines up everywhere, literally everywhere along the defensive line, exploiting whatever matchup he can. So I'm pretty excited for starting him, as you should be every week for fantasy.
Yep. And I will go ahead and retract something. I swear I spent at least half an hour this morning looking at images of Denver and everything else. And the first thing I see today is a video from Denver this morning of the field. Now it's early, really early when they're doing this, but there's a good, quarter of an inch, half an inch of snow on the field. Now it's not as bad as 6 inches like people were suspecting, but there is snow in play. Maybe that will reduce something. When we get to the Chiefs game, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. As far as Ernest Jones's knee, man, that is a little like, I don't know. I don't want to say confusing or frustrating, but I don't like the. I was just going to say he played the full snaps again, or at least the majority. But it seems like that knee at any point could cause some issues and reduce him down. If I have a better option, I really want to explore it, but I don't think that I can. It just seems like his production is just too solid when it's there, man. Anything else that?
Of course, links don't work when I want to click on them. We saw him still play last week. I'm still rolling with him. Like, I understand the concern there, but I'm rolling with Ernest Jones now. What's his name? Rosen.
Yeah.
Rosenboom. Thank you. He did technically have a higher tackle efficiency last week, but the snap percentages are in the 50s, so that's not great. So, it's Ernest Jones or bust for me for the linebacker situation here for the Rams.
Yep. I will say, obviously secondary wise, there's not much for me, the team that I'm really too hyper focused on. I haven't been overly enamored with either team, so I'm comfortable to move on to the divisional matchup at the Frozen Tundra, or maybe not frozen, semi cold potentially. The Minnesota Vikings, a 1-point favorite, travel to Green Bay with a point total over a 41.5. The only significant injury news really in this game is that Devondre Campbell has had limited practices all week. Brian Asamoah for Minnesota is irrelevant because they don't know that they have more than one linebacker in Minnesota. And if we want to do that, let's start with the IDP side of the ball. Jorge, we talked earlier about Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter being definitely going to be a must start there. And I want to go to the other end or the other side of the ball. Hollywood, those Minnesota. They have ran 3 safety sets consistently. Are all 3 of the safeties possible IDP options this week?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they have been so far, right? I mean, and that's kind of been the trend with some of these teams, is that big 3 safety set or big nickel, however you want to call it. So, yeah, I mean, Metellus has been just as good. I think we talked about last week. You can plug him in. He's going to get you 6 or 7 tackles a week. Bynum has been playing out of his mind, and then you've got Harrison Smith, who's kind of doing just a little bit of everything, right? So,
yep,
I would be okay with starting all 3 of them, in various leagues.
Yeah, it's definitely been at the exchange of Ivan Pace and his play. He has pretty much been relegated to non-existent, which is a shame because I really like Ivan Pace, but I understand it as a rookie. I think they feel more comfortable with the play of those three at safety. Let's talk about this a little bit, Jorge. In the Green Bay Packers, Rashawn Gary, the matchup against, and Preston Smith for that, against these Minnesota Vikings tackles. Is that something to be a little, I'd say, concerned or pay attention to?
Both of these guys, Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, have basically graded out as two of the best offensive tackles in all of football. You look over the past, from weeks 5 to week 7, 3 pressures by Darrisaw, 9 pressures, but no sacks, a few quarterback hits here and there. Just been playing outstanding. There's some concern in terms of Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith as far as what do you do with them. I personally don't think that I would start either of them if I depending on my options here. If I had to pick one to start, I think I'd go Smith over Gary in this situation, though.
That's tough because, I love Rashawn Gary. I want to start him everywhere, and I want him to play every week because I think the upside is tremendous. But like you said, if you have that option, if you're in a deep league where you're starting 4 defensive linemen, of course you're not sitting either one of these 2. But if you have, earlier, the 3 IDP option per team, or maybe just 1 defensive lineman, or then at that point, I'm pivoting to something a little more upside driven or safer floor. I think both are valuable. Rudy Ford, Hollywood, has had what I consider a pretty solid IDP floor so far going in. This matchup against Minnesota seems to be another one that could pay the way. Is Rudy Ford kind of a little underrated, do you think, going into the week?
Yeah, I think so a little bit. Not the popular name, right? And in the past, he's kind of got roasted at times for his play. But looking at the season so far, especially as of late, he's been really good. He's been that Josh Metellus slightly better because he's had, he opened up with 4 tackles, and ever since then it's been 7, 7, 8, 9, 7.
Yeah.
That's consistent. And if he can continue that, then I'm okay with it. I'll take Rudy Ford and 7 tackles and whatever else he can give me and be happy with it. Because it really is about the consistency, right? We chase big points week to week, but if you can give me somebody like that being consistent and making it worth me plugging them in as a starter, I'll take it.
Yep, and that's exactly right. And I think that's probably the one thing that we get away from so much, especially with defensive backs, is the volatility, because we chase that. Oh, Cameron Bynum had 2 interceptions last week. Let's chase that. Now, Cameron Bynum is a separate entity in itself. He's been just solid, consistent every single week. But we know what we're trying to say, or what I'm trying to say. You said it eloquently, which is an adjective I can't believe that we're describing for our friend Hollywood here is eloquent. But
hey, I have my moments.
You have your moments for sure. There's a lot of adjectives to describe Kirk Cousins. Dad, boring, dad, boring. But winner is, I don't know if people in Washington or Minnesota. Yeah, there you go. That's an adjective with a description. That's exactly what Kirk Cousins is, because he has been fantastic. You said you hate the word must start, and I don't disagree in some capacity, but he's on many must start lists, even without Justin Jefferson, because look at this most recent, game against San Francisco, top 6 production against one of the best defenses in football. I'm starting Kirk Cousins no matter what, especially against at Green Bay. But Jordan Love on the other side of the ball. Here's the Vikings defense that is not the best defense by any means, but they blitz heavy. Jordan Love under pressure is well, you know what? He is not like a piece of coal that turns into a diamond. He's like a walnut that just crushes into a mess. So I should have thought of these analogies prior to that, but came out, good times. Are we doing anything with Jordan Love? Is there any situation he's a streamer for you, or even just super flex possibly?
super flex. And I say that begrudgingly. Yeah, I think it's super flex this week, low end QB2, but definitely not in one quarterback leagues.
Yeah, no, I'm not either. Now, the running back room for Minnesota. We've seen Cam Akers return into I would say, a trending running back. I mean, at least from what we've seen in the last couple of weeks now against this Green Bay defense, Hollywood. I think both have that running back 2 upside, but I don't think both could be a running back 2. I think it's going to have to be one or the other. What's more likely to happen? Hot hand if Cam Akers continues to roll, or they lean on Alexander Madison like they had in the past?
Well, for me, I kind of think you're going to continue to see more of this Cam Akers, right? I mean, I feel like they already know what they have in Alexander. They got rid of Cook. They gave him a shot early on, and it's not what they thought it would be. Maybe it will be later on at some point, but that's the whole reason they traded for Akers, and I think it's taking him a week or two to get acclimated to what they want to do. So, yeah, I can see his shares go way up.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Jorge, you in agreement with that statement, or you still leaning towards Madison?
Nope. Give me Cam Akers.
I'm telling you. Well, here, let's see if we consensus can agree for Rougarou. Good morning. Welcome back. And he has a flex spot question. The Gus Bus or the decoy? And that's what I'm calling T. Higgins, because that's essentially what he had been in a few games, is the decoy. But that's not nice to say, because T. Higgins, when playing, the upside is tremendous. Jorge, Gus Edwards, T. Higgins. Which one are you choosing in your flex? We'll say half point PPR so that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'll go with the decoy. We kind of saw the secondary get a little bit exposed there for San Francisco versus Minnesota on Monday Night Football last week, which I was very surprised to see. So yeah, give me Joe Burrow and give me T. Higgins. Another week removed from what was it, a groin injury that kept him out for some time, if memory serves me correctly. So I think we're going to see T. Higgins kind of reassert himself, especially with a lot of the focus being on Jamar Chase this week.
Hollywood?
No, I'm going to take Gus Edwards. Goes back to being kind of consistent, right? If you look at the last 4 weeks, he's been that 15 carries, 12 carries, 16 carries, 14. He's had
hold on.
5 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks.
Here's an added piece to that. Is a full point PPR.
That changes it a little bit, but I still think I roll with Edwards. You're playing Arizona this week. He can get short yardage touchdowns for you. Like I said, he's got 5 in the last 4 games, 3-0-1-1, so he's getting the goal line opportunities. I just think with his overall rushing share, I think he's a more consistent play for me right now. I'm not hating the Higgins play because of the PPR full point. That changes it, but
yeah. And as you mentioned, Higgins was a fractured rib more so than a soft tissue injury,
which is even better, I think.
It is better. It's a pain tolerance thing,
right?
But it's very close. The full point PPR has me swaying a little bit T. Higgins side, but I also I love the Gus Edwards matchup. I mean, Arizona just screams. And if you look at
Higgins, he's only getting, the last 2 games, he's only had 4 targets each game.
Yeah, but that's also, like I said, the decoy situation. They put him out there. They did that last year with him too. Remember when he wasn't going to play and then he went out and didn't play at all and he's burnt it. I think that's probably also on my mind, Jorge, is I also have been on the receiving end of that torturous, like, he's going to play, I'm going to play, and then he doesn't play. And I haven't been burnt as much by Gus yet, but I can understand both cases. Especially
look at it this. Well, I guess if you're in a flex spot, it's kind of the same. But would you rather start Edwards at running back, or would you rather start T. Higgins at receiver? I feel like Edwards is a much better player at running back, as a running back than
I see
Higgins
what you're
is
saying.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does. Well, let's add this added little wrinkle to it. You have one other option. Do you put Tank Dell over either of those two?
For me, yes.
So then you would put him over. You would put him as your starter then.
I would put Tank Dell. Yes, absolutely. That's an easy. That's an easy one for me.
Yep.
Okay, all right. I still think I lean Gus, but I think it's close. I think Tank Dell's in a really good spot this week. Shocking enough, without Robert Woods, and we'll get to the Houston game soon. It's a lot of targets to be spread. Maybe not just both to Nico and Tank, but there's definitely upside there. So, Rougarou, good luck this week. Welcome back again. Thank you for your continued support. Nathan wants to know: start Taysom Hill in a standard league, or you can pick up Darren Waller. If that's the case, I'm doing that, even over Pitts or Gerald Everett. But what's that face for, Hollywood? You would rather start Taysom Hill than Darren Waller?
Ugh. It's kind of rough all the way around.
Why?
I don't know. Well, can we trust Waller to be this week or any week, actually? I feel
He's
like Taysom's a little more trustworthy.
Taysom Hill last week how good was Taysom Hill, right?
True.
Right? He scored 5 less than Darren Waller last week.
Well, I guess my one concern for Waller is he's only got 1 touchdown so far this year.
And he's still the tight end 4.
Okay, you talked me into it. We'll go with Waller.
I didn't try to talk you into it. I'm just saying
you
it's
did. You sneaky ass. I see how you are.
tight end 5, I guess. But
I think you're starting to see with Tyler Taylor's experience has taught him to spread the ball around, and fortunately, it is going to Waller's direction.
Yeah.
He seems the more competent Giants quarterback that they've had all year in terms of utilizing all of their receiving options. So I'm with you there. I think I'd go Waller. I'd pick up Waller.
I also don't think Tyrod Taylor's going to have any time whatsoever to, I don't know, any other options he would actually need time to get the ball to. But I think the Jets are going to put a constant amount of pressure on him, and I think Darren Waller will be his safety valve. But I do. My only reason I don't really like Taysom Hill as much this matchup as what we saw last week is also Juwan Johnson. I haven't heard if he's going to return. If he is, it makes you think that Taysom Hill doesn't see the target volume. I still like the back and forth. I mean, like I've heard this week mentioned, Taysom Hill's really exciting because he's seeing the targets and he's a goal line running back. I mean, that's a hard combo to find in any player, and he does it. But the reason Nathan wants to know that also is because with the poor offensive line, using Waller to block a little bit more, I think that's going to be one of those situations where I don't think they have a choice. I don't think they can ask Waller to block to throw the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, it just doesn't seem like that's a viable situation. Maybe you guys disagree.
No, I do like the usage of Wan'Dale Robinson since Taylor's coming over, but I think I do like Waller as far as the receiving option better than Robinson.
Gotcha.
Or even Darius Slayton has had his good weeks in terms of being targeted down the field. I don't like the matchup this week, given the fact that Gardner is back, which I think he would be primarily locked in on him, if memory serves correctly. But yeah, so
back with the Green Bay Minnesota game, the one area that I think that deserves some attention brought to is Aaron Jones, who came back last week in limited action. Was limited in practice this week. It's been said that he's going to be limited in snaps. It's a lot of limiteds. Are you thinking that Aaron Jones is going to be limited to the number of times you start him, or other people listening should start him?
Yeah, I'm concerned when Matt LaFleur comes out and says, yeah, he's far from being at 100%. He's not, I don't know, that to me was a very telling telling statement that, AJ Dillon, we've been seeing the uptick in production. We've been seeing the uptick in terms of consistency for a good flex position. RB2, I'm not thrilled about it, but if I have no other choice, then you have no other choice, right? But Aaron Jones, for me, I'm not confident in just yet.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that over the since Justin Jefferson's been out, Jordan Addison has gained our trust for sure. I mean, 20% target rate, 30% air yard rate, touchdowns in 3 straight, 6 on the season. He's on pace to shatter touchdown rookie receiving numbers as far as touchdowns go, but that's a very non-sticky stat if you ask me. Are there any other receivers? Are you trusting KJ Osborne in any capacity, or is either one of you two? I mean, he hasn't topped double digits in 4 straight games now, even though he's been on the field consistently. Is there a KJ Osborne truther between you two?
I think it's Powell that I'm more excited about. I'm joking. I mean, no, I'm kidding. No, not for me. I can't speak for Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really have to be hit with 5 weeks in injuries, right? You really have to be suffering right now to want to start Osborne. And I feel bad saying that because I think he's a decent player, but
sure,
for what we're trying to do, I just don't. I mean, 5 for 47, 4 for 48, 5 for 49. That's his last 3 games. So if you're expecting that full PPR, then I could get behind the play as a wide receiver 3 or 4 or flex.
Yeah. Yep, I think that says enough about KJ Osborne for sure. On the other side of the ball, Romeo Doubs, who without Christian Watson was looking like a huge asset. I mean, he was a wide receiver 17, but now with Christian Watson returning, we've seen everything metric-wise decline for Romeo Doubs. He's been the wide receiver 76 over the past 3 games. Are you even considering him in your flex, Hollywood, Jorge? Either one? Yay, nay?
Nay.
Nay. But we're good with Christian Watson this return?
Yeah.
Against Minnesota?
I don't really like either of these wide receivers. I've not felt comfortable with the production, although, again, I understand we're talking matchup-based opponents here. But yeah, I guess we'll roll Watson if I had to pick one this week.
Yeah. Mediocre at best. I mean, Watson week 5 was great with 25% target share, but then back to week 17. The nice thing is the route participation is good. 17% target share is okay. But again, like we said, Christian Watson or Jordan Love's going to be under a ton of pressure with this blitz heavy Minnesota D. And I don't think I'm going to love that necessarily. TJ Hawkinson's obviously a legit case for the overall tight end 1 this week with 26% target share without Justin Jefferson. Green Bay, I guess if you had to start a tight end, Luke Musgrave is an option. But again, I don't think we'd love any of the Green Bay receiving options. So let's move out of Minnesota or out of Green Bay, I guess. We'll go to Hollywood's neck of the woods. We'll hit the Atlanta Falcons minus 2.5 at the Tennessee Titans. A point total over under of damn near my IQ, 35.5. So not exactly a good sign for this game. I would be dumber. As the Billy Madison quote would say, I believe we are all dumber now for watching this game. We're all dumber for watching Arthur Smith, not knowing what he's going to do. It's been the most considerably confusing situation of all time for me. Here's the quarterback 19 on the season, Desmond Ridder. He's had 2 top 6 finishes in the past 3 starts. As I'm phrasing this, Desmond Ridder appears to be like a sheep in wolf's clothing or a wolf in sheep's clothing, where he builds your trust to get in close and you start him or stream him against this weak Tennessee secondary, and then he just shits the bed, or Arthur Smith transitions to a passing or a running attack. Jorge, in what scenario are we starting Desmond Ridder?
I do like the fact that the secondary is kind of not in a great spot this week. So I actually would be okay with starting Desmond Ridder as a high end QB. Yeah, as a QB2. As a QB2. I wouldn't say high end QB2, but as a quarterback 2 streaming option if I needed it this week, I think I'd be okay with that.
I'm fine with that. All right, Hollywood, you get to answer and address the elephant in the room. Bijan last week. I think it's a non-factor, him missing the game and being so, uninvolved. I don't think it's a non-factor that he's being less involved than we had hoped for, but he still averages nearly 100 yards a game if we eliminate last week from that thing. This week against your Titans is extremely tough. You can't not start Bijan. I think that from your draft capital that you invested, most likely you don't have a secondary. But I mean, what's your realistic upside for Bijan? Is there an upside for an RB1 this week, or is he strictly just an RB2 flex with hopes and prayers?
Yeah, and this may actually be one of the hardest decisions or trickiest plays of the week, really. Because after last week and even the week before against Washington, he was only 13 of 37, 13 for 37, but he had 5 for 43. So, like you said, if you take out last week and we're getting what we've seen from Bijan to that point, yeah, I think there's some real upside for him to be an RB1 this week. Tennessee is going. This is going to go one of two ways now that they've traded fire. Either these players are going to get fired up and say, you're not doing this to us or whatever, and come out like gangbusters, or they're just going to see this as, okay, you traded fired, you're giving up on the season, you're giving up on us, we're going to get in just lay a goose egg. So,
yeah,
there's a lot of factors. I think Arthur Smith really wants to win this game, being a former Titan. I think Rabel wants to keep him from winning for the same reason, right? He don't want somebody coming in. Like you said, with the capital you have invested in Bijan, I think you have to play. Yeah. I would feel comfortable as RB2, though. I would feel great as that, even though with last week's thing. But
what it sounds like is this could be it could be a good football game to watch because both teams should be at least, because Vrabel will be motivating, and he should motivate this Titans team to want to win. But like you said, it's hard to be motivated when you watch the pieces that around you start getting shifted and you wonder what's going to happen. But I don't know. I think on the other side of the ball is the area that could be.
Piece either, right? I mean,
players
coming and going, but you're going to trade basically the heart and soul, outside of maybe Henry, of your entire team. I mean, they called him the mayor of Murfreesboro, and you just traded him away for freaking peanuts.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a sore subject. So let's move to Derrick Henry's side of the ball, where Derrick Henry may. No. Then again, Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears maybe not exactly the easiest decision ever, because Derrick Henry, in games that they lead, relied and leaned on heavily. Games they trail, they lean on Spears. Jorge, one decision only. You have both, and you have to start one of them. Are you starting Derrick Henry knowing that they're going to lean on him, or do you think that the big play upside of Tajay Spears is enough to want to start him?
Yeah, I'll take Derrick Henry. I'm not. I refuse to believe that they're not shopping him, even though they came out and said that they're not shopping. Like, I understand their reports came out. Get me past the trade deadline before said decision is taken into it. Give me till after the trade deadline to believe it. If they were shopping him, they're gonna emphasize him, trying to get that trade value up. If they're not, then from a coach's perspective, then let's get his confidence back up and make him feel like he's still somebody that we want. Let's emphasize him. So yeah, I'm starting Derrick Henry over Tajay.
Yeah, I think that it puts up 24 for $130, and Baltimore sees that and they don't get the production out of Gus or Justice Hill they're looking for, and all of a sudden that price point goes up to an extra round, and all of a sudden Tennessee's then enticed. If that's the case, if you have a chance to get Spears, do so. I would still do it anyway if there's an opportunity to get him. Maybe after the news that they're not trading Derrick Henry, his trade value decreased a little bit. We will see. Drake London, we talked about earlier, versus a great Tennessee matchup. If we take out week 1, dud. He's the wide receiver 18.5 point PPR since week 2. We know we're starting Drake London. No other options receiving wise in Atlanta. Tennessee side, DeAndre Hopkins is going to have his hands full with AJ Terrell. With or without Tannehill, I don't know if he's anything more than a wide receiver 3 or 4 this week. Either you guys disagree with that and think he's better than a 3-4?
No, but I would be very curious to watch the Treylon Burks, Will Levis, if that is in fact Will Levis who gets the official nod this week, which sounds like it is. I'm not saying start Treylon Burks. I'm saying pay attention to Treylon Burks because you look at these guys. They probably got more time during the preseason and during OTAs and training camp to have more work with one another, being younger players. I don't know. There's something stirring there that I like down the road. Gut feeling completely, not saying start. I'm just saying pay attention to the performance today.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. I hope that it improves. I mean, a 50% target share is okay, but the 1.3 yards per route run isn't
not great.
Not great, but at the same time, that's, I mean, big, powerful receiver. You're not going to expect a 3 yards per route run at the same time, but that's okay. So, D-Hop, maybe watch Treylon Burks. Tight end premium leagues. This is tight end premium leagues only. You have a flex spot. Jonnu Smith, he's sitting there for you. Are you putting him in that flex spot in a tight end premium league, Hollywood?
Yes, I think so. And it's basically because I'm a firm believer in players burning their old teams, right?
This is a huge revenge game. I mean, there's just pieces across the board from this. This is, you would think that Tennessee would hate Philadelphia more than anybody, Tennessee fans, because of A.J. Brown and Kevin Byard. But there's no teams that have more pieces from each other's organization than it feels like Atlanta, Tennessee has. So, yeah, that's interesting about that. Do you who outscores who, Jonnu or Kyle Pitts? 50-50. I just say a name.
Yeah, that's close. I probably still might take Jonnu slightly.
There you go. That's it. We heard it here. Jonnu Smith, or Hollywood says. Jorge Chigakonkwo was supposed to be someone, hasn't scored more than 6 points in a week. Atlanta has allowed 4 tight end 1 weeks. So they've allowed the tight end 2 overall, the tight end 1 overall, the tight end 10 overall, and the tight end 6 overall. This is supposed to be the matchup. But even given all those positives, are you starting Chig in any format?
No, I am not.
No, but it's maybe, you know what? DFS play, maybe Chig is a good, very cheap option that, knowing what we know, you could do something there. IDP side, guys.
Maybe if he actually had a quarterback worth a damn.
Well, yeah, but then again, that applies to a lot of situations.
We really need to get off this game before I believe.
We are. I'm ready to move. I'm ready to go on. Let's talk about something positive here. Talk about 2 linebackers that are elite run stoppers in Nate Landman and Azeez Al-Shaair. I have both as I have one Al-Shaair as an LB1, Landman as an LB2, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. Any of the linebackers in this matchup is Caden Ellis even worth mentioning? His efficiency has been so bad, or do you creeping him up a little bit?
Ellis, I kind of think I'll leave right where I have him. I don't think I'm moving him either way, really. You're right. Landman and Azeez are going to be the 2.
They should be studs, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do in the secondary. Both the disappointment. Jorge, you talked on Richie Grant 2 weeks ago, saying how disappointing he's been as an overall component. Amani Hooker, Hollywood, I guess you probably know this better than anybody. His box snap should be probably even more increased without Kevin Byard occupying some of that role. Is Amani Hooker or Richie Grant both players that maybe seem like decent options, or is that just a little smoke shadow?
I think Amani Hooker definitely is a play because Byard's gone, and they've not changed anything in front of them. So definitely like Hooker this week. I like Jesse Bates too, because if they run Henry, he's going to have a ton of tackles. So I think that's the 2. Richie Grant, I'm kind of, I don't know. I like him. I think he's really talented. I think he fits well with Bates, right? They seem to coexist on the defense. If he would just stay consistent, I like Bates. I mean, I like Grant, and I think for this week, I guess for the purpose of this week, yeah, because I think Tennessee is going to try to run Henry a lot. So yeah, I think you're okay with either one of them.
What are your thoughts on Jack Gibbons this week, given the running heavy game script that should go for the Falcons? Well, I shouldn't say run heavy, but I mean just
Could be.
Is Jack Gibbons is he a LB3 for you guys, or what are your thoughts on him this week?
Easy LB3. Easy LB3. 9, 10, 10, and 8 is the last 4 games tackle numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have him just on borderline with like right around the 34, 35 range, but maybe I'll move him up just a little bit, hoping that
only a 3.9% missed tackle rate, so he doesn't miss very many tackles when he gets the opportunity. So
yeah, they've gotten good production, I will say, in a what seemed like coming into the season a couple question marks, especially considering I think Monty Rice was the person that more people were excited about than anything. And he's been the biggest letdown. The other two have really stepped up. But, we'll see how that matchup unfolds. Let's head to the next game on the slate. This is New Orleans at Indianapolis. We've touched on a few pieces of this already. New Orleans -1 with a 43.5 over-under. Out for the Saints. Marcus Mays out with an illness. Demario Davis and Alante Taylor, both limited practices all week. On the Indianapolis side, Colin Granson is out. Juju Brents is a great safety or rookie corner. He's out. And Zach Moss looks questionable with not a positive trend. So here we go, guys. Derek Carr, back-to-back top 10 quarterback performances. He has thrown the ball 105 times during that span over the last 2 weeks, which is first in the NFL. The Colts have allowed the 11th most completions and 11th most yards, but only 7 touchdowns allowed. This is going to be that situation. Number one, yes or no, Jorge, does Derek Carr throw the ball more than 40 times this matchup?
Yes.
Number two, does he have more than 2 touchdowns, Hollywood?
No. I think he can get 2. I think that's it, but I don't think he has more.
So given those 2 stats, Jorge, is Derek Carr a top 12 performer this week at Indianapolis?
He is Matthew Stafford level of play. He is not a must start.
There you go. Rougarou is now tuned out. He's probably just go ahead and slammed his laptop shut, and he moves on because he says, "Who dat?" But he knows it's Derek Carr. Let's not get too carried away about the touchdown performance. But it's nice to see that he's throwing the ball. I would like to see him throw it more than 1 yard to Alvin Kamara, since I don't have much of the Alvin Kamara side. On the other side of the ball, Gardner Minshew. Let's say you're in a super flex. It's a little tricky. Here's the New Orleans Saints, who have allowed the 6th fewest yards. Minshew has thrown a lot over the past 2 weeks, the 5th most. But he's also leading the league in interceptions during that time. Gardner Minshew is on your Superflex spot. Do you feel comfortable with him there, or would you pivot to someone else, given a scenario of a situation that I'm phrasing that you don't have any clue who your made-up quarterback could be, but I'll give you a couple examples. Let's start with you, Jorge. You have Gardner Minshew. You also have Jimmy G. Jimmy G or Gardner Minshew? Jimmy G in Detroit? Okay.
Yeah.
How about Hollywood? Geno Smith or Gardner Minshew?
Ooh, I might take Minshew. I mean, they're more than likely they're going to be behind. They're going to be throwing, right? Mm-hmm. If I can get 300 yards and 2 touchdowns out of Minshew, I'm okay with that.
You think you can get 302 out of him, but not 302 out of Derek Carr?
I just think it is tricky. I just think the whole thing with Carr is a lot of checkdowns to Kamara and those guys, right? Which you talked about, wish you'd throw it more in the yard. I mean, he's going to be close, but I just think if Kamara is back and the running game is going, that kind of limits Carr a little bit.
Well, we'll circle back to this passing attack with Derek Carr here in just a second, but I want to talk about Alvin Kamara. I think he is a must start at this point. He's been an RB8 since his return in half point PPR. He's RB4 in full point PPR, and there's no other running backs in New Orleans that we're even considering this week. We know that, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. On the other side of the ball, though, this is the interesting one. Zach Moss is a game time decision. Does Jonathan Taylor return to the RB1 that we wanted from probably a year and a half ago, or not so fast? New Orleans has allowed the second fewest points to running backs with 67 yards per game average. Jorge, we saw JT have some more explosion last week. He looked better. He was heavily utilized when he was on the field. When he was on the field, damn near every ball was either in his hands and, I say explosive, but this New Orleans run defense is tough. How high are you on JT this week? RB2, flex, RB1.
He is just outside of my RB1 range at 14. So, I'm feeling pretty good about Jonathan Taylor this week.
Gotcha. Well, we were talking about Derek Carr earlier. Here's a little more to the puzzle. Indianapolis, they run the second most snaps out of the zone. Chris Olave, when facing zone, air yard percentage goes up tremendously. As a result, I think that he could be in line for that big, I don't want to call it a breakout because it's Chris Olave, but I think the week that we've been waiting for this year. Third most targets versus zone and the sixth highest ADOT of any receiver. High over under 50% that Chris Olave can finish as a top 3 wide receiver this week. Hollywood.
Under, I think.
Under. Jorge?
So you're asking me if I think over 50% chance he finishes as a top 3 wide receiver?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think he does.
Okay. All right. I like that because that I want to go into the Indianapolis side. While we've seen Michael Pittman as the wide receiver 6 over the past 2 weeks, propped by that big touchdown, 70-something yarder, he hasn't really done well against man coverage. But guess who has? Josh Downs. As Ruguru said, smash play for him. Josh Downs has been even better against, well, guess what? Bad slot corners. Insert Alante Taylor. Alante Taylor's not really – I like Alante Taylor because I think he's a fun person to watch. He quick breaks on a lot of plays. Unfortunately, he gets burnt. He reminds me of Janoris Jenkins back in the day, who was, really, really high output. Could have some great games because he's going to get the interception. He's almost Josh Downs or Alante Taylor should have like 4 interceptions at this point. He doesn't. But Josh Downs or Michael Pittman for you, Hollywood?
I like the upside with Downs. We kind of already know what Pittman is. I just think Downs is a better player. I want to see these numbers continue for him, though, right? The targets and the receptions. So with that, I think you're starting to see him hit his stride a little bit. Had his first 100-yard game last week, touchdowns in back-to-back games. Yeah, I think he's a good play this week.
Nice. Let's hit the IDP side, and then we'll get to a question here for Cats Took Over. Hollywood, or Jorge, I'm sorry. Give me the New Orleans side of the ball, because I know this is an opportunity to say Carl Granderson's name at least once or twice.
Look,
I like Carl Granderson. That's not a knock against him. I'm just ready to I want to support him.
I love Carl Granderson, regardless of matchup. As long as there is competence on the other end with Cameron Jordan, unless I check is a competent pass rusher. I'm always starting Carl Granderson. You mentioned the injury to Demario Davis. Yeah, he ended up playing, I believe, last week.
He did. Yep.
So I feel though Pete Werner is probably the one I feel more confident in starting. That would pretty much be the only 2 must starts for me from the Saints if I had to pick players there.
Hollywood, I will name these players. You tell me where you believe you have Quiddy pay defensive lineman 2 or defensive lineman 3 this week, or less.
I like him better as a 3.
Me too, especially if Carr throws the ball 50 times, right? I mean, I think that's got to be a good opportunity. Zaire Franklin.
Oh, no doubt. He's the LB1 this week.
There you go. Julian Blackman.
I was just looking at him, and I don't. That's a tough one because I just don't know where I want to slot him in at. I was trying to look at my rankings to see where I did have him, actually. It wasn't very high.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, there we go.
Blackman, I had Blackman at 8. So.
Oh, that's not real high. 8 overall defensive back. That's pretty solid. Yeah. I would take that.
Well, I mean, compared to what you and Jorge's got him, that's low, I feel like. But.
So I'm updating my rankings right now, and I set the rankings for Blackman at 9. Ironically, you know who's at 8? Kenny Moore. I'm actually pretty excited about Kenny Moore and what he's been doing this year, the past month, I should say, for fantasy purposes and for his production. So 2 Colts defensive backs in my top 12. It's bold. It's a bold strategy, but I'm liking what I'm seeing.
The thing that's going to help Blackman a lot is if they force feed Kamara a ton of passing targets.
When they force feed Kamara a ton of targets, because that's all they've known. If Carr throws 50 plus times, there's plenty of tackles to go around.
Value a lot. So
absolutely. Well, let's
welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's been a couple of weeks for me, but I'm back, ready to roll with y'all.
Well, good. Then you get the first shot to answer this first question. He has a full PPR start to Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell, Christian Watson. He had Kincaid Thursday, so he has a good little upside. When that happens, real quick answer to this. When you are planning your roster and you have a 2x time performance out of a player like Dalton Kincaid did when he doubled his projected, do you still go for more of a floor play with some of your start 2s, or do you still shoot for upside?
Me, it kind of depends for me. I kind of change it up a little bit depending on how I'm feeling. A little bit of both. Is that fair?
Well, then let's take that into account for this question here. Who are you doing? Full point, full PPR. You're starting 2 of these.
Immediately off the bat, my first start is Christian Watson. And then Deontay's close, but coming back from that injury, I'm going to go back to the Ridley well. I hate to do it, but I'm going to go Ridley and Christian Watson. I've seen a lot from Ridley. I like what he's done. I know he's had a couple of bad games, but I think a Ridley game is coming. I read a stat where he eats in zone coverage.
Yes.
And and I think they play a lot of zone. Who are they playing? Pittsburgh?
They play Pittsburgh, yeah.
Yeah. So they play a lot of zone. I'm going to go with Calvin Ridley.
There you go. I think I'm right there with you. Get back here real quick for a little tidbit of information. Ruger has also as a note, there was a flu bug that hit Saints camp this week. Michael Thomas listed as questionable. There's also Ryan Ramczyk returning, and that means he's playing DeForest Buckner from a matchup standpoint, which I think is pretty good, and that definitely makes sense to me. Moving on, Kyle, we're going to jump right into the New England at Miami game. It's a 9.5-point favorite for the home team, Miami. It's a 47 implied over-under, so the highest point score of the week so far that we've discussed. Left tackle Vidarian Lowe is out, and then Josh Uche and Keon White for New England are both Uche's out, Keon White limited due to concussions. Let's Mr. Pie Bet himself.
I was hoping one of these guys would come in, either Preston.
I was.
Or Chris.
Yeah.
Well, this was turned into just nothing but a New England love fest here. Let's talk about how shitty 2 is real quick, man. I mean, despite a solid week 7, no, let's talk about Mac here. Mac Jones by far the best week he's had maybe in his career last week. Preston, even you are not starting Mac Jones in a stream against Miami, correct?
Well, I have no choice in 2 of my dynasty leagues. I gotta super flex him.
Okay, all right. So super flex is not
Yeah, I super flex him. I won't start him in a 1 QB.
Yeah. Even the Patriot homerism is not crazy enough to start Mac Jones as a 1. But I think that he'll definitely be trying to throw the ball for sure. Tua we're starting. Let's keep up with another piece of the New England puzzle, because Ramondre, for me, has done what I expected him to do for the last 2 weeks. He's put up back-to-back top 20 weeks. Still a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
But 15 points against the Dolphins in the previous game. It was a little buoyed by that touchdown that he had. But where do you have, Ramondre this week? RB2? Is he more of a flex? Or is your upside higher than that?
Well, their running game against Miami, I think, is going to be pretty solid. But the fact that Zeke is going to be seeing some work too, that's stopping me from putting him as an RB1.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I hope that we see the receiving work, right?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely want to see that.
Continue.
Would he get like six receptions last week? That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's had
And I think
6 last week, 5 the week before, so 12 targets the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's what we're banking on for him being that, that continuing to rise running back in drafts, where he was starting to go at the end of the second and moving up even higher, where people were thinking, here's a 70 reception type back if they continue on with this trend, especially with no pass catchers to even be concerned with. No offense to Mario Douglas, no offense Kendrick Bourne. We know where we're at, but
I like Douglas though.
I do too. I just wish Mac had a better deep ball to do so. Maybe that takes effect against Miami. We'll see. It's tricky. This Miami defense can be a little stingy but at the same time, a little generous in certain aspects if they don't get the pass rush to them. Let's talk about the running game for Miami, though, real quick, Kyle, because Raheem Mostert, he missed Wednesday's practice. He's got him back-to-back limited practices. New England has been really good against a running back, but Raheem Mostert, it's hard not to start him when he's playing. What's your comfort level? New England allows, they allow the fewest yards per carry in the NFL, 3.4 yards per carry. Mostert, I don't know if he needs the volume to be as explosive, but is he an RB1 for you this week?
Because they're playing the Patriots, I'm going to go with a strong RB2.
There you go.
You're definitely going to start Raheem Mostert. You have to. He gets the volume. He's the guy. It's a tough matchup, but maybe he punches one in when they get down to the red zone.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to hope for, because I think New England does some things, that they've always done. They know to identify and eliminate the best threat for the opposing team. Is that Tyreek with the banged up hip, or do they realize that maybe that should be take the running game out? And I don't know. You tell me.
Well, this is not even me being a homer. This is going by the past couple meetings we've had, even when he played for the Chiefs against Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, you can't completely stop him.
Right.
But we slow him down. I think we do a pretty good job at slowing Tyreek Hill down. All we can do. And with this bum hip, like I was telling Chris on the chat, he got a bum hip. So it might be a problem. But
he won't be doing backflips with the phone in his hand this week, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he ain't doing no backflips if he get in his end zone. And if he does, please do one.
Exactly.
So, Preston, do you expect Tyreek to do about what he did last time, which was like 5 catches, 40 yards, but he did score? Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, hopefully without the score, because we normally find a way to shut Tyreek Hill down or slow him down. But this bum hip got me pretty. This bum hip, and I don't know how long their left tackle has been out. I don't think he was out the last time we played. So
Teron Armstead.
Yeah, I don't think he was out. He wasn't out the last time we played. I don't think.
I think it was week 3. I had to look back and see when Miami played. I think they were playing Carolina. if that makes sense. In my head, it sounds right. I don't even know what their schedule is, so if I could be way wrong. But regardless, I think it was like week 3 is when he was out, and I think that the rest of that, JC Jackson's going to have Tyreek for the majority. Yeah, and that's big. So
Yes.
I think that's going to be the matchup that you want to see. Jalen Waddle, who struggles against man coverage, did go 4 for 86 last time out, but Jalen Waddle still is. I mean, he's the biggest beneficiary of a Tyreek Hill elimination game, if that's New England's, I guess, goal. But I think Jalen Waddle, Hollywood, probably just a low-end wide receiver 2 this week, or is he higher for you if you think Tyreek is banged up?
Well, he's kind of banged up too.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. They better go with Cedric Wilson.
Oh no, another River Craycraft week for us, huh?
I mean, if Hill's really hurting with his hip, then I think Waddle definitely bumps up just a little bit, even though he's kind of banged up too. But
yeah,
I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that even though this hip is flaring, he's fixing to rock one today.
It's hard to ever take anything away. Kyle, last time, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said Tyreek Hill's been known to have these boomer bust games. We saw it all the way back, dating back to KC. He has games. One game he'll put up $190 and 2 touchdowns. The next game he'll go 4 for 26. And I mean, this is 100% that's exactly what I think is going to happen. There will be no 6 for 96 and a touchdown. It'll either be 10 for 160 and 2 scores or 4 for 25. Now watch out. He'll hit exactly 6 for like 96 and a touchdown. But regardless, I think that's what we should expect to see. Let's talk a little bit about the IDP side, Hollywood, on the New England Patriots. Who really, outside of maybe Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, is there anybody that you're excited to start? I mean,
no, not really, because they're hurting with pass rush, right? With Uche out, and that's the thing. So I think these safeties are going to have to come down in the box a lot more, especially if Mostert is doing his thing. And I think Peppers and Phillips and Duggar. I think I look at those 3 and I kind of stay away from everybody else this week.
Yeah, the pass rush somebody's going to get to it. Someone's going to actually have some type of protection. But Minnesota or Miami's done a really good job of protecting Tua all year. Like maybe one of the best improvements as far as protection that we've seen, and I think rightfully so. If I'm Miami and I don't address protecting Tua after last year, you failed. You should probably have been fired. And so they did a really good job of protecting him. And I think that this will come down to, so Preston, Vidarian Lowe, left tackle for the Patriots, being out. Sadly enough, that might actually be a good thing somehow. Because Vidarian Lowe is terrible. Man, he's terrible.
But he's a starter.
He is a starter.
But he is trash.
Man, he has he puts 11 R's in terrible is how bad that man is. 1 for each sack he allows, basically. But it is Charles Barkley would even have to enunciate terrible longer than possible. But he is a starter, and there's no matter how bad he is, Patriots evaluation know that he's starter worthy over whoever the next man up, which means Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, maybe Van Ginkel are all options that could have decent games, and Javon Holland should be up in the box to reduce much of that. So that's the IDP options there in that matchup. You
just gotta get rid of that ball quick.
That's exactly right. Ball quick. I wish I knew who that meant. That would be
Mario Douglas is going to have a good game today.
Okay, there you go.
Mario Douglas is what's his name playing for Miami?
They don't know yet. We haven't learned. Jalen Ramsey? Don't know. He's supposed. They're optimistic he's going to play, but they have not announced anything with that yet. If I hear any more, I'll go back, because if he's out, that does improve Demario Douglas and Kendrick Bourne's upside. If you ask me, let's go to New York.
So real quick. So Preston, you're not worried about that pie bet, right? You're feeling good.
Well, since I'm feeling you know me. We split with Miami a lot. They got us the first one, and we just gonna have to see. I'm about 50-50 on it this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Just get that
But,
beard ready just in case.
Yeah, yeah. My wife told me put cocoa butter on my face before. So,
I will say,
so,
as far as bets goes, that does seem that there's no spread for a 9.5 point game. It's pie to pie. It means I think you're getting the brunt of that. I would think that maybe you should have to take a like a regular cream pie. That sounds terrible, but you know what I'm saying. Not what I meant. Move on. But yep. There we go. If you're just tuning in, this is not what you had searched for. I promise you. Preston's cream pie is not the kicker that we want. Let's answer the question. Oh, sleepy. If you're still here, who would you all start this week? Hollywood Brown, Josh Palmer, or Rashee Rice? Kyle.
Man, I was reading that and I was like, please don't go to me first. Yep. I like Rashee Rice. I just can't trust him yet as a flex. So it comes down to Josh Palmer and Hollywood Brown. I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown. It's tough, but I'm going to take Hollywood in this predicament.
Preston.
I'm gonna go with Rice. I like the uptick with Rice.
Understood.
And they're playing Denver, even though Denver has looked pretty good on defense lately. I still think Rashee Rice is going to eat.
The bar was set extremely low for Denver to do anything but improve after you get 70 thrown on you. But at the same time, you are correct. They still have looked better. Hollywood, you gonna take Josh Palmer to make it even more confusing, or you going one or the other?
No, I mean I like Josh Palmer, but he didn't practice, so he's got a knee issue. So I don't know if he's a full go or if he's playing. So I think I would go with Rice.
Gotcha. That's a tough one. I really want to.
Could this be a QJ week?
No. No, it could not. Don't even talk that in because someone's gonna do it.
I'm hoping for this guy so bad. I'm hoping for him.
I know Rashee Rice has looked pretty good and he's coming on, but Mahomes still distributes that ball evenly across everybody.
I know.
I'm just going with the volume play there, but I do like Rice. I think eventually he's going to become the guy, but I just don't want to gamble this week.
He will, and the problem is, like you said, with Rashee Rice. When he gets 75% route participation at that point, or of the 80% snap, whatever the case may be, that's when I feel more comfortable. But the 50% just says that if he has a down week, that down week is a 0 basically almost for you. And the upside is probably 14, 15. I don't see the 30-point week out of him. I don't know if I see that out of Hollywood or Josh Palmer, but I think there's a more likelihood that we see that in Hollywood. Let's go to another question. Johnny T, welcome back, my friend. How are you? Good morning, everyone. Full PPR. Hollywood, we'll start with you. Pick one. T. Higgins. I think we've talked about Josh Palmer, and we know that I think Josh Palmer's out of our consideration with the injury and the potential there. He could burn us, but I think you'd rather play it safe. Cortland Sutton or Rashee Rice. We're seeing trends here with Rashee Rice. Yeah. Hollywood, you want to start us off with just pick one?
Yeah, so Palmer is banged up, so that kind of eliminates him. We talked about Higgins earlier. So it's basically Sutton or Rice. Man. I think just because of the quarterback play and the team around him, you got to go Rice here. I like Cortland Sutton, but
definitely been touchdown dependent. Preston, how about you, man?
It's Higgins' time, baby.
There we go. And
it's Higgins' time. It's time. Higgins playing for that money, and he healthy.
No, yeah, that's the key. No decoy anymore for T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Let's just
it's Higgins' time.
Incorporate that. Kyle?
Well, you talked about earlier with Rashee Rice and Palmer. You don't see 20, 30 points out of these guys, but you know what? T. Higgins has done it before. So who's going to score more points in this right here? I'm going to go with T. Higgins.
I'm there with you. I'm hoping. I've been burnt by T. Higgins enough in the past that there's a little bit of some scar tissue, but fight through the scar tissue, and eventually that's when the best production happens, is when you eliminate those pre-existing concerns. And as Drew said, yes, he's going to have to switch over to our OnlyFans where we talk about Preston and Pie. And look who's here. Good morning, all.
Oh, Lord.
Yep, I know. Don't worry. Yep.
Where is he at?
He already made a video. Did y'all see the video?
Oh yeah. I look. You know what though? That's what I love about this group in y'all, is because it is each week it becomes more and more just family and friends hanging out and talking shit and getting videos like that even on the ledge, man, went out on a limb, because that will be replayed with the splash effect over and over of the pie in the face. I don't know how to edit videos, but someone will figure that out.
I'm a little sad that this is ending in week 8. Like, this is it. This is the last time they're going to play.
Well, yeah, but we'll find other pie bets. We'll find other ways to make this happen. It won't be in the playoffs. We know that, but we'll find something. Ruger says there's 10 inches of snow and 20 degrees here in Denver. Reports have been crazy. I looked at videos this morning, and it said no, like 3-mile-an-hour winds. And then I looked at the picture of Denver's field, and it looks like there was maybe a half inch or an inch, and they were plowing it. It's we'll keep notes on that. Still Isaiah Pacheco. Tyler says, looking good. Gentlemen, would you play Roshan over Palmer? I think that with what we've talked about Josh Palmer, if Josh Palmer plays, is anybody starting Roshan over him? Is there still comfort level? Like, I start Palmer even if he's just 80% over Roshan this week.
Yeah,
I'd go with Palmer.
Yeah, Palmer.
All right, Preston, this question for you, I'm guessing. Should I start any Patriots this week or quit fantasy altogether if I have to start any? You know what sucks about this is normally I would have like an IDP option, be like, well, yeah, man, you start Matthew Judon. And I don't even have that this week. So unfortunately, and the good news is he even double digged you. And I think he was saying, when he misspelled weak, I think he was talking about the Patriots being weak. It was
he fixed it.
I know. I think it was subliminal. I think he's got you. And Ruger says, y'all kill me with these Higgins picks. I know it. It's just it's hard. It hurts, but I do believe he looks healthy and he's gonna be ready.
And Burrow looks like he's back.
Burrow finally looks like the key is gonna be protection and the time needed. And that Cincinnati Bengals offensive line we know has been susceptible to not giving Burrow the time needed. Speaking of offensive lines that might be susceptible, the New York Giants host the New York Jets. Jets 3-point road favorites. 35.5 implied over under. Gross. Out is Daniel Jones, maybe Andrew Thomas potentially, maybe Evan Neal. I don't think I'm touching either quarterback. I don't even want to ask your opinions, because if somebody says they're starting one of them, you're getting the boot. Jorge, don't even mention Tyrod Taylor's name right here. I know you want to, but
hey.
Nope. Preston.
Gone.
Yeah, he took himself off. Really? Come on, Tyrod against this Jets defense.
I have no other quarterbacks. I have to start in our Fantasy and Frames Dynasty League at 3 a.m. I picked up Tyrod Taylor and PJ Walker because that's how desperate I am at quarterback.
It might work out for you. Tyrod been doing all right. Well, I guess compared to the DJ, I mean, I could go out there and probably do my thing.
Hey, Jorge, I got your in that league. I got your boy Sam Howell. Throw me a first-round pick. We could talk.
I am currently in negotiations for that first-round pick with Jonathan over a player who I'm trying to get him to agree, even though he's over in the UK, probably not paying attention to his phone right now. But
exactly,
trying to do something there. But yeah,
fair enough. In situations, I'm hopefully we're addressing the people that don't have the unfortunate, tanking for Caleb or quitting for Caleb or whatever analogy. If it's Caleb Williams for the number one for you, Jorge, at the end of next year, which
Yeah, no.
Oh, Marvin Harrison Jr.
I would like to get Marvin Harrison Jr. Yep. But
Gotcha. So let's pivot from a high, exciting Marvin Harrison Jr. talk to the Jets and Giants. So, who wins this game, the Turf Monsters or either one of these two teams? I'm hoping for the Turf Monster, which is terrible because
man,
yeah.
Is it not a repeat of last week almost, except it's kind of a downgrade with Zach Wilson versus the Giants? I feel like two defensive fronts with bad offensive lines that should be doing well with one another for IDP at least, you know?
Well, I think this is an actual discussion to have is which running back finishes higher between Saquon and Breece Hall? Because I think Breece Hall's in a fantastic matchup. His snap percentage has gone up from 52 to 68%. Dalvin's went down from 16 to 14. Dalvin wants to be traded now. Great. Good luck with that one there, my friend. I don't see too many people knocking on that door, but you never know. And the Giants have allowed the fourth most. What's that? Oh, sorry.
He knew what he was getting into. Now he want to be traded.
Mm-hmm.
He knew what he was getting into when he signed.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. No one sees Rodgers getting hurt and doing that, but at the same time,
but he knew he was going to end up playing the back seat to Breece once Breece got healthy.
Absolutely, Breece is way too good, and the Giants rushing D, fourth most rushing attempts, second most yards, third most touchdowns. Jorge, Saquon or Breece Hall this week? This is just we're starting both of them, but just as who do you think finishes higher?
I think Breece Hall does.
I think so too. I agree. Saquon does have 26 touches a game since his return, which is, elite numbers, but still, offensively speaking, guys, I don't think there's not much. I mean, Garrett Wilson, I'm comfortable starting. I don't necessarily love based on what his preseason upside was. Kyle, how high up would you feel comfortable with Garrett Wilson? Wide receiver 2?
No, that's a little, and maybe a low end wide receiver 2. I'll go there. Low end wide receiver 2 for Garrett. Yeah.
Gotcha. Hollywood, Darren Waller, we talked about earlier. You still in agreement that Darren Waller will be we think top 6 tight end this week?
That's going to be pretty close, I think.
Preston, any other offensive players on between these two teams that you feel comfortable starting?
Other than no, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, I tried to stretch and tried to find one.
I know, man. It's tough.
Go
ahead.
I have a situation, and I can't let my bias get to me, where I have to choose between Garrett Wilson or Calvin Ridley this week. Is it obvious Calvin Ridley smash?
No, Garrett Wilson for me. See,
I think Calvin Ridley. I like Calvin Ridley though. I'm big on Calvin Ridley. I think he's going to find his footing. He's been out for 2 years.
I know, and that's fair. It just, my gosh, his downside has been so bad. And here's Garrett Wilson's target percentage in every game: 29-30, 29-35, 28-38. That's, that for me is just, I don't care who the quarterback is, and I know that it's bad, but that's great. Those are too big of numbers, man.
But you're not wrong. I mean, their projections are neck and neck.
Absolutely. Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. It's like one pulls at 30% of 180, and wow. There's a great question real quick. Ruguru wants to know as we lead into the IDP talk of this game. I've mentioned the New York Giants defensive line or offensive line with Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, and everybody else. What's the temperature on Bryce Huff? Jorge, you start on Bryce Huff.
So, yeah, he's been third on the defensive end rotation in snaps over the past month. Although you look at his pressures, I believe it's 23 pressures, a couple of sacks, by far the most productive edge rusher the Jets have had, like I said, over the past month. I like him I like his sack upside here. I do like him to get a sack. If you're looking on DK or FanDuel for defensive player prop bets here, I believe they have him at like a quarter of a sack still. I would definitely throw down. I would include him in a parlay if you could. I definitely see him getting a sack here against this horrible Giants, tackle situation they got going on.
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson on the other side I like a lot too. Hollywood, I know Quinnen Williams has been solid. Quincy Williams, Bobby Okereke, Jason Pinnock. Where do you think Micah McFadden falls in the total snap percentage? Do you think he's getting closer to that 70% snap share this week, or is he still down in the untrustable range?
I think he gets closer.
I hope he does. McFadden, when he's on the field, is dynamic, but I think
he's not there enough. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, like, I love the trends in the total defensive snap share. You like what you're seeing on first and second down. It's the third down and fourth down that I don't like at 16.7%. That and you see then a huge bump in Isaiah Simmons in that situation in third and fourth down. So you can't ignore McFadden's production on first and second. I'll say that. So would I feel comfortable starting him if I had a third linebacker? Yes, I would.
Okay. Question
he's
here,
Ken. Have the volume though, because he's got a 17.3 missed tackle rate. That's the thing, right? So if he's not out there all three downs, that's a tricky one.
Yeah. Ken wants to know, one has to sit. Danico Autry, Will Anderson, Dexter Lawrence, or Jalen Carter? Hollywood, who you sitting?
Autry, Anderson, Lawrence, or Carter? Lawrence, I think I would sit him this week. I think. Yeah.
Me too. Jorge, you agree? Dexter Lawrence?
Yeah, I would sit Dexter Lawrence here. Yep.
Cool. All right. And then he could put Jalen in his linebacker and use Huff combined and Aiden Hutchinson at defensive lineman. I like Jalen Phillips at linebacker, but I don't love him at linebacker. Any sack-dependent edge rushers at linebacker always scares me. But I would still probably – I think that's not terrible. In a situation, unless like Nate Landman was out there at linebacker or some of the other lesser owned, then Drew Tranquil, et cetera, would be ideal. All right, Preston, here's a question for you, man. It's only because it's Chris. But Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, or Alexander Madison in a half PPR, he has to start 2. Yeesh.
Pierce and Pierce for sure. I like Pierce in this matchup. They're coming off the bye. I think they're going to try to figure out a way. They done figured out a way to get Pierce this rock and have him more efficient. I think that Devin Singletary last week was was an anomaly. I think he's still going to Pierce is going to see most of the work. Between this Sanders and Madison, I don't know, because Cam Akers, like I said, is going to end up taking that work, and is trending towards it. I go with Sanders against a Houston defense that's not very good on the run.
True, that's a tough one. New play caller, new situation in Carolina. I still don't think they get away from Miles Sanders entirely. This could be a benefit to him. Maybe he sees more receiving work and has that benefit. Let's get back into some of the games real quick, and we talk about Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett. Is anybody streaming Kenny Pickett against the league's? Technically they're one of the worst pass defenses in football. Jacksonville, that is. Anybody trustworthy of Kenny Pickett? Show of hands. And if you're listening at home, Preston has his hand raised, and
I have to in Superflex.
Yep.
He's a lot. Yeah, he's in 2 of my Dynasty Superflex spots.
But that is the only format that you would do that in, is a Superflex for Pickett.
Yeah.
12 or 14 team, you're not doing it.
No.
Non-Superflex. Yeah.
Non-Superflex. No.
Agreed. And Trevor Lawrence in 14-team league is startable. 12-team league I'm still starting him, but I have my reservations because Pittsburgh shockingly has been pretty stingy, against passers. 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and only 250 a game. It's not ideal, but this could be, if everybody's in favor of Calvin Ridley repeat game, that means Trevor Lawrence is there. Tyler asked earlier between Najee Harris or Terry McLaurin. Let's talk about Najee Harris here real quick. Najee or Jalen Warren? Obviously, Jacksonville is better against like power running backs, and against receiving backs, they're actually terrible. So is there a chance that Pittsburgh gets behind Jorge and this turns into a Jalen Warren game?
There is a chance that Pittsburgh gets behind, and I'm still going to go Najee, even though they're good against power backs. I like what I've been seeing from Najee the past couple of weeks. Compared, although to be fair, both he and Warren were neck and neck last week. I can see where Lil Warren can get, the reception upside there if they are trailing from behind. But Najee is I have Najee ahead of Warren in my rankings. I'm going to keep Najee ahead.
Would you be happy with 14 carries for 60 yards out of Harris? Because that's about where he's at.
Does he score?
He's got one touchdown on the year rushing.
No, I just mean in your scenario, 14 for 40, does he have a touchdown?
Oh.
No?
No, I would go Warren. Yeah, I'd go Warren then. That makes more sense. But,
they've been Jacksonville has been pretty good on the run, but not passing backs.
Yeah.
But not passing backs. They haven't been too great on passing backs. So Jalen Warren,
they give fourth, fifth most receiving yards to running backs. They're the most targeted against passing backs. They've only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns, but I understand Jorge's dilemma there with that matchup too, because it's by comparison they're pretty close. I would lean Terry McLaurin, but that's also because I have zero faith in Najee Harris. But it
sucks too.
It does. So
I feel like Jalen Warren has actually looked better than Harris. Yeah,
I think he's looked much better. But
I feel
that's
like you
also
put Najee in Baltimore. Najee would eat. just fantasy places I would like Najee to go is Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the. It would be. That's where a lot of people wanted Derrick Henry to go. We'll see how that goes. Tyler, you're welcome for calling a cement shoe plotting running back a power back, but by definition, I only want to go with I only want to use Madden terms, and that was power back and or satellite back. And I think that as much as I would like Najee to be a satellite and to be in space, there doesn't happen that way. So the receiving game here, we talked a lot about Calvin Ridley, but Christian Kirk versus man is elite. Pittsburgh runs the 5th highest man coverage rate. Is no one here is Kyle? You're still going Kirk and Calvin Ridley in that order, correct?
Yes.
Is anybody flipping it this week? Does anybody think that it's going to be Calvin Ridley over Christian Kirk?
I can see why, just because of Calvin Ridley and the matchup in zone. But I think you have to roll with what Trevor Lawrence has been focusing more on in the offense. And go with, and again, I guess it depends on format too, right? If we're talking standard, I think I'd go, or non-PPR, I'd go Ridley, and any type of point per reception, I'd go Kirk.
Gotcha.
I have to be an analyst instead of a fan on this, so I got to go with Kirk.
Yeah, the fan in all of us wants to go with seeing Calvin Ridley return to week 1, week 2, or week 1 and I guess week 4, whatever that was, when he looked really good. But we're not quite returning to there yet. So then, but on the other side, I mean, here's George Pickens, who really, even with Deontay back, Pickens looked really good. I think Pickens is a start that we all are putting into our lineup. But what are we doing with Deontay Johnson, Kyle?
I just want to hold out on him real quick. I want to see what he can do first. I want to sit him this week, see what he does. If he has a great game, great. Then I know I got Deontay in my back pocket.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at as well, because Jorge talked about it earlier. PPR leagues, receptions, targets, yardage will all be there. Touchdowns elusive at times as season goes on. At least as long as you have a solid floor, those ceiling games as a wide receiver 3 are warranted and can be optimistic. News right now, Devondre Campbell with the Packers is apparently healthy and will play. Not sure if we're going to start him quite yet or not. I'm still leaning. Evan Ingram, we are playing. Here's a fun one for DFS guys on the Pittsburgh side. If you have a tight end that you want for probably, I'm guessing he's 2,000 for or whatever the scoring or the money is for the league that you're playing in, Connor Hayward, defensive or DFS target for tight end. He ran 96% of the routes last week for Pittsburgh. And Jacksonville is the third most friendly to opposing tight ends, like super generous. I've never heard Connor Hayward's name before until recently. So that is not a good sign for confidence. But in DFS, I don't exude confidence. I go with how can I throw my money away the fastest? And Connor Hayward seems like a good avenue to be able to do that for me. So if anybody wants to follow suit, chuck your money away, let me know.
All you need is a touchdown. That's it. All you need is one touchdown for 1 yard.
One touchdown. Yep.
Yep. Actually, shit, to return 2.5x on 2,000, give me 3 catches for 30 yards and you got it, but that might be asking for a lot. Jorge, IDP side, give me Jacksonville.
Oh, man. So, obviously, Lua Kuhn, Devin Lloyd, Josh Allen. I do think this is a good interception week for Rayshon Jenkins.
Sure.
So that would be the only rationale for starting him. So those are my Jacksonville IDP.
Hollywood, how about the Pittsburgh side?
Do what? You cut.
Give me the Pittsburgh side, please.
Who am I starting on? I mean, you got to start Minka, I think, right? Cole Holcomb, I think, is a start.
Okay.
I don't know. I think this is going to be a weird game for some reason. I just don't know.
Well, you're starting TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, right?
Well, yeah, you're starting those for sure. I think I like Geno Stone, or not Geno Stone. The other safety back there beside Minka.
Do what?
My brain went blank. The other safety besides Minka.
To start?
No, he wants to know who's the other safety.
Who's the other safety?
Who's
I'm
on Minka? You don't know?
Nobody in my lineup.
Yeah. You talking about DeMonte KZ?
No, I thought it was somebody else. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but
Possibly. Yep. Well, then I'm going to say that's probably not a start worthy.
Nobody relevant.
If we don't know the name,
Exactly.
I'm going to pass along. Connor Hayward is the name to start. I would start Connor Hayward over the made up random name that you don't know who it is. Jorge, let's go to a battle of NFC East supremacy between the Philadelphia Eagles at your Washington Commanders. Eagles 7-point favorites, over under 43.5. Out kind of big news, if you ask me, as slot corner Bradley Roby. They've had issues at slot filling in a person. Will that be Kevin Byard this week? Will that be a combination of things? Time will tell. Cody Barton on Washington's side is placed on the IR. We know that probably means David Mayo stepping up. For the rest of the IDP options that we've talked about, guys, pretty safe, or Jorge, pretty safe to say that all pass rushers against the Washington Commanders could be at least an option without the knowledge of any one specific really shining through?
Yes.
Fair enough. How high do you have Jamin Davis? You have him as an LB2 or LB3?
Let me pull it up right now, actually. Jamin Davis. He is definitely going to be a coverage linebacker there. I have an LB3 currently.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So
Cam Curl, defensive back 1.
No. He's 2. I have a hard time. Yeah, he's at. No, I should move him. Where am I going to put him? I'll put him at 9. I think he's going to be a good defensive back 9 this week.
No, so he will be a defensive back 1.
Oh,
He
you
will
mean
be
like
the
the
defensive
top
back
12?
9.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. All right. And Philadelphia side, the only real question I have outside of the pass rushers is, do we trust and start Kevin Byard in his first week? I don't know if I do yet or not. I think that without Bradley Roby, there will be more snaps to be had, but I just don't know his deployment exactly yet. So maybe that's all there. Chris says that A.J. Brown will break the record for consecutive 125-yard receiving games if he gets one today. So fire up Devontae Smith. Exactly right. That seems perfectly fitting. And then Dylan needs got to pick one flex full point PPR. And Dylan, thank you for adding the matchups. I always love when people do that because I forget. So it's Hollywood Brown versus the Baltimore Ravens, Joe Mixon versus the 49ers, Josh Downs versus the Saints, Kareem Hunt, Seattle, Michael Thomas versus Indy. Earlier, we talked about Michael Thomas and the flu that's going around, so he's questionable. I would probably pivot away from Thomas. And then that leaves, for me at least, Hollywood, Mixon, Josh Downs, Kareem Hunt. I'll let you guys answer that, though. Kyle, you got to pick one.
Man, I was just about to look at something, but you know what?
Yep.
Oh, here's for Hollywood. Why do I keep going to Hollywood in these scenarios? But
it's a great place to be. You know, I mean, heavy.
I
don't know about great.
I love Josh Downs, but I can't. Oh man, it's just I'm gonna have to go with volume at all.
Yeah, I like
this, and I'm
Downs,
going Hollywood. I mean, you guys believe in a revenge game? Because here it is, right here, revenge game.
I don't. And it did say Thomas
go
is
around with the Hollywood, so
that's true. Yeah, Thomas is active, which I'm not shocked by him being active, but I always think, you know, if the flu's going around and he's been out with illness, does that have a bearing on a person who already against, like as far as overall coverages go, Michael Thomas struggles quite a bit when you're looking at zone. And so at least he has been this year. He used to not, but that's started to degrade. So either way. Jorge, how about you, man? Who are you picking in this matchup? In that,
I'm going Josh Downs. Josh Downs.
Okay.
Josh Downs.
Hollywood, you taking Downs as well?
yes.
Preston?
Downs.
All right. I would I'd agree with you, Kyle. I think I would take Hollywood, but I think Downs would be really, really close. I love that Downs versus Alante Taylor matchup.
I'm just glad somebody's on my side.
Yeah,
I'll take you, Dave. I'll take it.
He was going to roll Mixon for safe volume which I understand. I just, man,
yeah.
There's all these points are valid, and you know that's everything. Everything everybody said. Saints are bad versus the slot, or Saints are bad in the slot. And then got to start one running back full PPR. Roshan, Jerome Ford, if he plays, I think he's going to play. Devin Singletary or DeMercado. I'm probably going to lean DeMercado from what I saw last week versus week 6 when I really needed him to do well, which means he will suck really bad. And it will be Devin Singletary over Dameon Pierce, who Preston mentioned he liked earlier. It'll throw all of us off. So, Preston, what about you, man?
I go what on this question right here?
Yeah. Roshan, Jerome Ford.
Yeah, I was hoping it wasn't that question.
Yep. Nope. Sorry.
DeMercado's out. I don't trust him.
Yep.
I go with Roshan. Gotta go with Roshan. I love me some Roshan. And Deonta Foreman ate last week. And he really ate last week. But that's probably only because Roshan wasn't there. They love Roshan over there. And he's a better pass blocker. So he'll probably be on the field a lot more.
That is exactly true. Yeah. Foreman is not a capable pass blocking back. That's for sure.
And they definitely need him because of Badgett.
Well, he is not a good pass blocking running back. Washington is not a good pass blocking unit. Philadelphia defensive line should eat, but Sam Howell is not, even though we've seen this, guys, Philly susceptible through the air. You can start opposing quarterbacks against Philadelphia. Should you start opposing quarterbacks against Philadelphia, Hollywood?
Ooh, against Philadelphia. I mean, the volume is going to be there, right? So
maybe.
Yeah, I would.
I think maybe.
I would, because they are going to be trailing from behind, like Hollywood. You said, interesting name though for people in deeper leagues, 14 teamers or larger. Chris Rodriguez, rookie for the Washington Commanders, out of I actually don't remember where he's out of, but the past couple weeks versus Atlanta, versus the Giants, 5.75 yards per carry, 4.43. We are seeing him being a little bit more efficient with his limited role, albeit a limited role at the running back position. And so that is something interesting to monitor. You may want to stash him on your bench if you are in a deeper league. Just a name to keep your eye on there, Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah, I done put a couple dollars down on Rodriguez this weekend myself to try to get him.
Yeah, that's the thing with Washington. Three-headed monster. I mean, it's not really a monster. I guess monsters are ugly, so it's a monster for that reason. But I don't trust any of the options fully against this Philadelphia team. Swift, I do trust to be an RB1, but not, they could use Gainwell, and it wouldn't shock me if the volume dependent Swift, which shockingly, that's what he's kind of been. I mean, the metrics are a little bit down, big explosive plays here and there, but overall, behind that offensive line, I think that I don't want to say I've expected more. That's a knock against him, but I think you guys get what I'm saying, that if Gainwell were to be involved more, we could see Swift be a bottom end RB1, high end RB2. As far as the pass catching goes, we've talked about AJ Brown, 125 plus in about every game that we've seen. Devontae Smith has been relegated to like a wide receiver 3, which is kind of untrue because he's been the wide receiver 55 over the past month. Jorge said earlier, using the phrasing, he hates to say must starts, because I think Devontae Smith has kind of got himself out of that must start conversation. But comfort level with Devontae Smith this week, Preston.
Well, I was just looking him up. He had the drops his past 2 games. Last game he kind of picked it up. He was 5 for 4, 4 for 5.
Mm-hmm.
That happens with wide receivers. I see him having a bounce back game, and AJ Brown won't break the record this week.
There we go. Now, Terry McLaurin on the other side has the metrics of a wide receiver 1/wide receiver 2. But just the touchdowns are lacking. He only has 4 red zone targets all year so far. Jorge, outside of Terry McLaurin in this matchup against Philly, are you even looking towards Curtis Samuel or Jahan Dotson? Please say no.
So Curtis Samuel was listed as being active. There was some concern about him playing this week, but not somebody that I'm rushing to start on my. Yeah, even with Bradley Roby being out, you don't know what's happening at slot. No, don't start anybody else besides McLaurin.
Gotcha.
I hate to say it, Jorge, but they're gonna tear Sam Howell up. They're gonna. I hate that.
Don't want to hear it, Preston. I'm not trying to hear it, Preston.
The time that he had to speak was actually longer than the time Sam Howell will have to pass the ball. So it ain't gonna be good.
Yeah, they go. I hate to say it, man.
Dude, I mean, Logan Thomas, honestly, he had such a great start to the season as far as I was concerned, but like last week was a good rebound. It's just that up and down, man. You go from like 5% target share to 20 to 8 to 9 to 17. I think he's the only other option I would trust whatsoever. Like if I had to, he's a bottom end tight end 1 for me, high end tight end 2. On the IDP, Dallas Goedert, on the other hand, is a high end or tight end 1 for me at least. Washington's allowed 4 receiving touchdowns over the past 3 weeks to opposing tight ends. And that knocks out, we talked about the IDP side. So the Houston game, Houston at Carolina. Houston 3.5-point road favorites. Over under 43.5. Out. Sheldon Rankins at defensive tackle. Robert Woods is out for Houston. Von Bell's out for Carolina. Brian Burns he didn't practice Friday, but he is playing today. He's healthy. And Frankie Louvu got in limited practices, but it appears that Frankie Louvu is good to go as well. I personally love the CJ Stroud matchup. Who's going to be the biggest recipient of that? Is that Nico exclusively? Will Tank Dell come in and be a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 2? Preston, I'll let you answer that, bud.
Tank Dell. I'm gonna go with Tank Dell. I think Nico's gonna still get his, but I think Tank Dell's gonna be the recipient of most of the targets.
And I think that's, like we said earlier, Robert Woods is averaging 7 targets a game. So I mean, that's 7 targets that are going to be spread around. How many of those?
Really gonna run this ball? I think they're really gonna run this ball though.
As they should. There's no doubt about that, because Carolina allows the second most to the running back. Jorge, do you think? I mean, I know Preston said that he likes Dameon Pierce in this matchup, but last week we saw Devin Singletary eat into more of the workload. Is that shocking or scary, or just a blip in the radar to you?
I think yes, it was a lot of efficiency. Devin Singletary's efficiency 2 weeks ago was fantastic. I think it carries over this week. I think Carolina, it just is a bad matchup overall for running backs in general. Again, small sample size, right? You look at Dameon Pierce over the course of the season, the efficiency yards per carry has not been there. Devin Singletary comes out, leads the snaps, takes over the snaps, and for Houston 2 weeks ago. I think they both can have success. So I'd be confident rolling out Singletary.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris said it's Tank's birthday. Happy birthday, Tank. You're going to hopefully probably see. I could see 100 yards receiving out of both Tank and Nico. Dalton Schultz may creep back into tight end, like top 10 tight end, territory now, with some of these added little targets being, spread around. But I think you're right. I think we could see. I want to say we can see more of the run game, but I could also understand completely if this is where they let CJ Stroud kind of exploit the Carolina slack secondary. It'd be interesting. There's a new play caller in Carolina, Thomas Brown. What does that mean for Miles Sanders versus Chuba Hubbard? I don't know if it means anything. The biggest question mark I want to know is, will Adam Thielen still be hand-fed, or will this new play caller somehow want to transition to a youth movement and get Terrace Marshall, et cetera, involved, Jonathan Mingo. And that's kind of what we'll see. I think it'd probably still be Adam Thielen, but I think but Thielen from a fantasy perspective, I mean, you have to love having him perform as a wide receiver 1-2, and you picked him up as a 3/flex, right?
Oh yeah, he's an awesome smash play every week.
Yeah, that sucks.
Young goes to him. But what is going on? Does anybody know what's going on with Terrace Marshall? Because I'm just not understanding. I do not understand. Is his workout? He's not doing what he's supposed to do in practice, or what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know, because Mingo had 95% of snaps last week. Terrace Marshall was on the field for only 36% of them.
I gotta find out.
I mean, hell, is ADOT. I think that's one of the things too. Is like, maybe him and DJ Chark are running too far downfield. But Chark's getting 18% target. 13, 15, 19, 18. I hate it. I hate Carolina. I hate what they're doing. I don't like it. But we'll pass along. I do like what we'll see defensively, Jorge. If you want to start with Houston.
Yes, I do like Will Anderson in this matchup here. Blake Cashman has been playing well. We have the situation here with Denzel Perriman working his way back from injury. We saw the snaps start to go up as he had been working his way back. Obviously, that pumps down Christian Harris. Brian Burns, you said, is good to go this week, or he's trending in the right direction?
He's cleared. He's playing.
So I'm not scared of starting Brian Burns, obviously, and Frankie Louvu. Those would be my confidence starts. Jalen Petrie, Is yeah.
Yeah, a couple weeks back from that lung injury, I think he's
surprising inactive. We talked about the game earlier. Javon Holland is out this week.
He is okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I need to adjust that. So, Hollywood. Anybody else that there was missing? I don't think so. Actually, the one question I had: Denzel Perryman, Brian Cashman. Don't trust either one of them, correct? Because they're just going to eat into each other's numbers.
I wouldn't.
Fair enough. That finalizes that. Let's jump to the Cleveland in Seattle. Seattle is 3.5 point home favorites, 37.5 over under. Not exactly expecting much. PJ Walker is in for Deshaun Watson. Jerome Ford is questionable, but trending in the right direction. Sion Takitaki is questionable, but I need to check on that. Jedrick Wills was questionable all week. And then for Seattle, Uchenna Nwosu is on the IR. PJ Walker is in, but he's not in my lineup. I am probably not going to start Geno outside of Superflex. Is anybody starting Geno?
Only where I have to start him.
Superflex would be it.
Yeah, I guess do you want to? That's probably the better way. All these questions, I realize that are set up that you may have no better option. What were you going to say, Jorge?
Preston, in regards to Terrace Marshall, Chris Burns over here says Marshall has been training like a Patriot. That's the big issue.
Oh, man. Shots fired.
He been throwing them all week. Hell yeah. Oh yeah. We'll take them.
I wish I had a.
We'll take them. Come on.
Where's the Broncos fans in the group that want to talk as much trash against me this week as Chris goes, because it seems like I would never talk as much shit down to a Broncos fan, knowing that my team was supposed to win by double digits, because that pie is going to be extra. I don't know what the right adjective to use is. Painful.
Don't use creamy again.
Yeah, I avoided it. That's what came to my mind. I had to get off that. My mom could be watching.
For the pie bet, now does the loser get to choose the type of pie, or does the winner get to choose the type of pie? Like, is it going to be a cream-based pie, or a mousse, or a?
Or hey, we just said no.
Oh, God.
No. Yeah.
Long as it ain't lemon meringue pie, that's my favorite. I don't want that wasted. It'll hurt me.
That's true. You should, if you get to choose, being your 9.5 point underdogs, you should probably make it like a fresh out of the oven apple pie for Chris, and really make him regret that pie bet.
Or a bean pie.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Love it.
Cleveland, Seattle. Jerome Ford could suit up. I mean, I don't know if I want to trust him or Kareem Hunt, or, even Pierre Strong has gotten some. When you have three running backs, do you have any? Kyle, are you comfortable starting any of the Cleveland running backs this week against Seattle?
If I can help it, no. Because just what you said, you don't know who's going to get more touches out of the three.
Yeah. And then give me an answer on the flip side. Kenneth Walker, appears ready to go. He had a kind of an early week injury scare. Cleveland is about as difficult defense as you can imagine, but they did give up 168 to Indianapolis. So there is a case to be made that maybe they're not as tough, or was that just a one-off situation?
Yeah, if you have Kenny Walker, I think you have to start him, even though the Browns defense does look very, very strong up front. You still start Kenny Walker just for touchdown upside.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with PJ Walker, we're downgrading Amari Cooper. Jorge, are you doing the same with Tyler Lockett and maybe DK Metcalf? Both have this weird injury situation, both in a tough matchup against Cleveland. JSN, if for some reason no Tyler Lockett, there's a lot of question marks with the Seattle passing game.
I think, Preston, you mentioned, JSN a couple weeks ago. This could be the spot where he's starting to take off. Referring to your weekly flex plays of the week, I'm liking JSN rest of the season. I think you're going to start to see him involved a lot more in this passing game, especially, and it starts this week. It started last week. It continues this week despite the tough matchup against Cleveland.
Yeah, and then Tyler Lockett's kind of trending down. He's hurt, and yeah, and then they don't have to use they was using more linemen and tight ends. That's why you couldn't really get JSN on the field in the beginning because they had injuries to the line. So,
right.
But that Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong was actually my flex before this Jerome Ford news. So I still feel like if Jerome Ford doesn't suit up, I see Pierre Strong being the better flex option.
I've heard a lot of people say that. I mean, definitely more explosive and has the higher like what if situation. I think I'm probably just going to avoid and hopefully now. So like you said, stash Pierre Strong just in case re-aggravation or he proves otherwise. From the IDP side, we know we're starting Myles Garrett. I think Zadarius Smith could be a good start this week. Seattle has been, even though they've gotten some of their tackles back, they haven't exactly been very, very strong on both ends. And I don't know if I want to trust Cleveland linebackers. Hollywood, we've seen Anthony Walker get 100% of snaps this past week. JOK's been pretty efficient with limited snaps. Are you comfortable with either of the two linebackers in Cleveland?
No, I'm just not. But I know the volume's there for them. But, man, I think I would. The only thing that would trigger me to possibly look at one of those linebackers is because of Kenneth Walker. How many touches do they give him?
Yes. And that's what we talked about, like with the same situation against San Francisco a little bit ago, is that was volume that should have been all run right up, right through their linebackers. And then the snaps weren't there to support a really high ceiling. And the floor was just okay. Nothing spectacular. Kind of like on the other side, Bobby Wagner is a full LB1, but if Cleveland's not moving the ball as efficiently as we like, is there enough snaps for Jordan Brooks to be anything more than just like an LB3, LB2?
I think he's LB2. I think that's where he's at. I mean,
yeah. Jorge, Jamal Adams in his return. Are you comfortable with him? What do you think? Defensive back 2 this week, or is that too high?
I mean, the snaps are certainly there, right? So compared to what Julian Love had been saying when Jamal Adams had returned, I put him right at the cusp of 2-3. I just need to see more game usage and more game productivity.
Gotcha. All right, let's jump to the KC at Denver, the snow game that is maybe worse than we thought. KC still 7.5-point favorite on the road, 46.5 over under. Maybe the snow impacts that. We know we're starting Mahomes. Russ is probably going to be on your bench if you have a choice to make that against the Chiefs defense. I feel like Pacheco's entering must-start category each week with that RB1 in sight now. Top 10 in red zone attempts, red zone targets, RB14 on a per-game basis, 5 straight double-digit games. The other side of the ball is a confusing one, though. Kyle, Javonte has looked the best last week that he has. Chiefs defense, much improved against the run. They still allow some explosive plays at 4.7 yards per attempt. Is Javonte someone that you're recommending a start this week or even highly elevated?
I mean, man, because I remember that game, was it last week? I was watching it, and the Broncos rotated like 3 or 4 backs over and over and over again. And I'm like, what is going on with Javonte Williams? So the volume, kind of scares me a little bit. But, maybe with this snow, maybe they run the ball a lot more. I know it's kind of tough to say against the Chiefs because you don't want to run the ball against the high-powered offense if you're behind. But maybe the snow kind of keeps this game a little bit closer. It is a division game. Usually those games are kind of nip and tuck no matter what the records show. So, yeah, Javonte maybe as a flex play. Temper your expectations with Javonte.
Yeah, that's That's kind of what I'm thinking with. Hey, look at that. We got Canadian dollars. That's worth probably 10 times the US dollar at this point. So invest in that. Is that that gets a lot of poutine in that right there.
Don't hate on poutine now.
I'm not. Why would I hate on it? I just said a lot of it. Would have said
there's
no.
There's a sarcastic tone. Whatever. Thank you, Chris, for the donation. Appreciate it.
You know, this show has went down a bad road between the cream pies and the poutine.
Well, let's keep bringing back up, Hollywood. That's good.
Yeah, let's get back to the Chiefs game. We talked about Rashee Rice. We talked about the wide receiver room in KC being much more of a gamble than anything. We know Travis Kelce's the one to start, but I don't know if I'm starting Jerry Jeudy in any situation. Jorge, are you?
Nope.
Sad, isn't it?
Yep.
Did anybody expect by week 8 that Jerry Jeudy's a sit? And yep. Preston, good luck today. It's a trap game for Miami. There's a chance. Look at that. All that shit talk. 36 minutes away. And he throws that, hey man, I just want to let you know I am worried about this. Good luck. Any given Sunday.
You, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see you back Sunday.
Shit.
Preston, by the way, excuse me, Chris, I sent you a trade offer, just FYI. Let me know what you think.
Whoa. Hold on. What? Chris sends you money and then you send him a trade offer?
No, this is Dynasty Division is Chris Burns.
Oh, gotcha.
Chris
okay.
Burns,
Different Chris.
Different
Gotcha.
Chris. Yeah.
Just making sure.
Collusion?
Sure. I mean, shit. You can't spell collusion without Chris, I guess. All right. IDP side, Chris Jones, we're starting. Drew Tranquil, we said, is a good matchup. Interior, Charles Omenihu is not a good matchup, but he's someone that's taking snaps away. You talked about Mike Dana earlier in the season. Jorge, I think he's eating that. Justin Reed, a lot of box snaps, had a sack and an interception last game against Denver, but only 4 tackles, so I'm probably not as high on Justin Reed. Denver pass attack, Hollywood. Kind of, we had Nick Benito, we had Jonathan Cooper, and now we have Baron Browning. I don't trust any of them against Kansas City offensive line and or Patrick Mahomes. But do you trust Alex Singleton and Josie Jewell back at linebacker?
Yeah, I do. Especially Singleton. He's been the better play right now. But yeah, I think I'm good with both of those.
Yeah, I have Singleton as an LB1, Josie Jewell, low end LB2, high end LB3. And I think that no Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons is just kind of a guy. And but safeties and linebackers have scored the most against the Chiefs as a whole. We'll see if the offensive slowed down a little bit for Kansas City. They're a little more, not quite as high powered and pace. Baltimore, 9.5-point favorites on the road at Arizona, 44.5 over under. Marcus Williams out for the Baltimore Ravens. Dafi Owe was questionable. Need to check on that. And Jalen Thompson for Arizona. Guys, we know Lamar is an obvious start. Dobbs is on the bench. Anybody stashing away Kyler Murray right now and hoping that he actually plays? Preston, yeah, that's a play for you.
I stashed him and put him on my R like 3 weeks ago in like 3 leagues.
Yep. And that's a savvy play. We know how good Kyler can be. It might be a week or two to get his feet underneath him, but that's a situation that is worth Bears watching. Kyle, on the Baltimore side, I think one of the questions we need to know is Bus going to be driving this, or is Gus going to be driving the bus solo, or is Justice Hill going to hitch onto the back at some point and try to vulture some passing downs and or some work from Gus?
I'm gonna ride the Gus Bus train. He's looked pretty good. He's coming along here the last couple of weeks. But you gotta love the passing game in this game for the Baltimore Ravens with Jackson, Flowers, Mark Andrews. I think that is going to be what we see in this game, is a lot of passing from Lamar Jackson. And of course, maybe even on the ground with his own feet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Lamar's maybe the QB1 overall this week. I'm moving them up and down quite a bit as we go on. Like you said, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Arizona. We talked about Emari DeMercado. man, that week 7 was so good in terms of usage, but week 6 was such a what can happen. I don't know. Can anybody trust Hollywood? Are you trusting DeMarcado in a pinch if you have to as like a flex play?
Man, no, I can't. I mean, maybe others can, but I can't.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I mean, I don't want to give bad false hope for DeMarcado, but
Yeah, I wouldn't
I've
tell
been
you to do
in.
something that I wouldn't do.
Yeah. Well, tell me this then, Kyle. Would you start Trey McBride in a pinch knowing there's no Zach Ertz?
Yes.
I think Trey McBride, I think that tight end like 8 through 12 is really full of, I don't want to say good plays, but I think there's some crazy plays of people that you would maybe get really good production out of. Like, we said Dalton Kincaid was down there and he had a great game. Dalton Schultz, another Dalton that could put up those numbers. Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Jonnu Smith, Michael Mayer against Detroit. All those guys are like, they could all be shit, but they could all actually be productive, touchdown dependent. Of
Connor Hayward.
Honestly,
Connor Hayward. Whoa! Don't spill the beans too much. We only want people listening at that time to get the DFS,
Okay.
which I will need to speed through these next couple games to make sure people can get their DFS lineups and/or their prop bets and/or all of their rankings set, etc. So Hollywood, like we said, the Hollywood Brown revenge game. Well, let's temper our expectations on how big of a revenge game that is. But IDP wise, Jorge, Roquan, Patrick Queen. You talked earlier about in Shoot the Gap, you were a little bit down on Kyle Hamilton. Are you still down Kyle Hamilton going into this game?
Any defensive back for the Ravens, I'm down on. Period.
On the other side, Kazir White, I love this matchup, especially against Baltimore. Linebackers eat against Baltimore, especially linebackers that play plenty of zone. Kazir White in Arizona should. Hollywood Buda Baker returns so much that they let Kayvon Wallace walk, and he jumps right back into the spot that you knew him for. How high DB won this week overall, or not maybe the overall, but ADB won this week?
I had him I've got him at 11, so yeah, I think he's in that tier 1.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect. Cincinnati at San Francisco. San Francisco 4-point home favorites, 43.5 over under. Out Debo Samuel, waiting to see Trent Williams. He was doubtful, but that's a big loss. That's something that can really have an impact on both IDP and offensive side of the ball. Kirk Cousins just put up 378 against San Francisco, proving that the deep ball effect does work against that defense. Can Joe Burrow have enough time to do the same? Preston, we've talked a lot about Cincinnati, it feels. How comfortable are you with Cincinnati this week?
I believe in him. I think Burrow will have a pretty solid game. It's hard to go against that defense. That San Fran defense is pretty stout. But yeah, I think Burrow will still get his. It won't be explosive. It won't. You'll still have your doubts about him go after this week. But I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think Cincinnati will come out on top, though. I think they're going to 3-game loser streak.
There we go. That's your Preston Evans upset of the week. Cincinnati going to San Francisco to upset them. Love it, like it. Got a, I would say, conundrum in terms of what you do with Brock Purdy. He's ready to play. He's been a QB1 this season when he's played. I still don't know if I love him in this matchup. I'm not going to say anything about a concussion and how the person looks on the field, but he didn't look. He threw those picks at the end, and they just look bad. And I know he has a week to recover from that, or at least 6 days. But Kyle, is Brock Purdy just going back to your bench until next week?
Yeah, I think so. That whole concussion thing, it started on the plane, they said.
Yeah.
So is he one hit away from having a more serious concussion? Purdy, for me, I like Brock Purdy as a football quarterback. Fantasy quarterback, for me, he just doesn't throw the ball down the field enough. It has improved a little bit, but I just want to see more out of Purdy before I start him in a fantasy setting.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that's a sentiment that a lot of us feel. And unfortunately, he keeps producing and it goes, oh, man.
But he doesn't typically make those mistakes. Like that was his first game that he threw 2 interceptions in one game.
In the worst time possible, too. You know,
yeah.
I mean, here they had a chance to win the game. But so, and then I don't know if we have talked at all since the game's not up, but David Montgomery is out for Detroit. Or not David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds, I mean. So it looks like that we'll get to that game here in just 1 second. Let's rip through Cincinnati, San Francisco. I know we're starting Jamar. We're starting Ayuk. Joe Mixon, you don't talk about like I phrase it as a dichotomy of confusion because he gets this heavy volume. He has terrible efficiency. And San Francisco is really good defense, but they allow a lot of plays after contact and some explosive plays, which isn't Joe Mixon's forte. He doesn't have anything after contact. He doesn't have any explosive plays. So it's like you just are banking on the volume, but you don't really want to not start him. And Elijah Mitchell in a game where San Francisco gets up big, or Joe Mixon. Isn't that gross? Like it's Mixon, right? But it makes you think you're like, oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to go down open that Pandora's box because we ain't got time to discuss the Joe Mixon.
That's way too risky to go.
Yeah.
Exactly. I am gonna. It's Christian McCaffrey all the time for San Francisco. You don't have to worry about it. He's on his way. Hollywood, what was the who's he chasing for the most consecutive touchdown record?
Was it Lenny Moore? I think it was.
Yep, that's who it was, Lenny Moore. So Lenny Moore, if you're listening, I think Lenny Moore is probably not alive based on when that happened. But if you're listening, good luck. We hope that you hold on to your record. I don't because I have CMC. All right, so on the receiving side, obviously Brandon Ayuk should be more heavily involved. 557, I think he could get right here. George Kittle's always that hit or miss when it comes to when players are out, and without Debo, Kittle can be that tight end one. IDP side, with no Trent Williams, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, both improved because one usually benefits the other. Logan Wilson's a must start. Dax Hill, I think, is a must start, right? Hollywood, Nick Bosa has 2 sacks on the season. Is this a game where he gets that third? He's going to check some things, is what he's saying. He's like, well, I don't know, man. Cincinnati's a pretty tough offensive line. I got to give him some time. You're on mute, Hollywood, is the reason I'm still talking over you. But
he doesn't even know it yet. You're on mute, Hollywood.
Maybe his audio mute. All right.
You're only IDP guy here on the segment here besides Nate.
I'll keep talking then. Fred Warner is going to be a play, as well as Dre Greenlaw. Fred Warner looked like he got hurt last week, but he came back strong, which was good. So that's a positive. Yep, can't be.
And Greenlaw got taken out of the game.
Yeah.
So Oren Burks, people,
Yeah, that's a possibility. It really is. If one of them suffers injury, look for Oren Brooks. Let's get the Chicago Chargers game. Chicago on the road as 8-point underdogs, 8.5-point underdogs, 46.5 over under. Jaquan Brisker's out for the Bears. Nate Davis, offensive guard, is out. Justin Fields, of course. For the Chargers, Joshua Palmer is questionable, did not practice. We're not quite sure with limited practices if he's going to play or not. That's something to monitor. Unfortunately, it's not until Sunday night. We talked a lot about the dilemma in Chicago with Roshan and Dante Foreman. Preston, how's this play out, man?
I'll tell you what, it sucks that Roshan had that concussion last week, that he was out.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to ride with Roshan. I think Roshan will see the most of the field because of his pass blocking.
I mean, I think that's definitely going to be the question that people have is when. Like, I personally think it'll be Foreman, but you hit the nail on the head earlier. That pass blocking, one blitz by the Chargers that Khalil Mack destroys Deontay Foreman and they blow up Tyler Bagent.
He gone.
He's done. And then it's Roshan time. And that could happen, or that could never happen, and we have to wait until next week. It's a dilemma that I hate to have to be stuck in because I don't have an answer and I don't feel great or comfortable either direction.
And I like Foreman. I like the story. I like the whole story behind Foreman, his road to where he at now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Roshan is just the more explosive back. I mean, he's more explosive. He just played behind a generational talent his whole college career.
I think it's fair to this is a guessing game, right? It's fair to guess that it's probably going to be maybe a 50-50 split between the two.
Yep.
And whoever looks good in this game may get more of the touches next week if Herbert's not back. And he's not going to be back. He's on IR. So, yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I think it's just as fair to say, hey, the Bears get down by 14, and it's the receiving back, and Roshan has I would say, the better receiving chops. Even though Deontay Foreman has been targeted in games, it's more likely that it's Roshan. It's also more likely that Austin Eckler finally gets back to what he's been doing, well, what we had known him for, but there's still concern there. Excuse me. I want to know, like, outside of DJ Moore, a 31% target share, there's nobody else in Chicago that anybody's trusting. Hollywood, there's nothing in Chicago that you're excited to consider, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
Cole Kmet?
I don't know, man. That's what I say.
I mean, he's at what? He's probably a top 10 tight end, right? We talked about 8 through 14. Kmet over the 8 through 14 guys we talked about earlier.
But that's the thing is the one thing that the Chargers have been surprisingly good against tight ends. Granted, they haven't played anybody necessarily great, but their numbers will be inflated because Kelsey put up 36 against them. Hawkinson put up 15, but then everybody else is combined for an average of like 5 per tight end. Now they're not big names either. Let's be honest. It's Durham Smythe. It's Chikakonkwo. It's Michael Mayer. Before Michael Mayer is Jake Ferguson. So I just don't trust Cole Kmet's guaranteed week in and week out production.
Okay.
Enough.
So then let me ask you this, Nate. If you have both tight ends, Cole Kmet, Michael Mayer
against Detroit. Detroit's much more susceptible against tight end.
You're going with the stream, basically.
I'm 100% just going to go up with the matchup there. I don't trust enough Tyler Badgett passing volume. I mean, what? 1 yard per 2 yards per attempt, and they're just it's not great.
Yeah.
But Keenan Allen, we're going to know more about Josh Palmer. If it's not Josh Palmer, you said Quentin Johnson. Do we just keep that name out of our mouths? Right? We can't do it. We're not going to do it. Let's not do it. Right?
I want to say it. I want to so bad.
Everybody does since week 1.
Yeah.
And if each week we got to take 2 letters out of his name, we would be down to basically just the Q and the J, and there's no T or D in Quentin Johnson's name, so I'm not expected to get there either. IDP side Hollywood, TJ Edwards, Kenneth Murray, Tremaine Edmonds, Derwin James, but we talked about it safety without Jaquan Brisker. Eddie Jackson might be a name to pay attention to, right?
Yeah, he might be a sneaky play.
Yeah, and that's really about it. I mean, there's options, Bosa, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack both against this Bears offensive line that's been really, really poor over the years. There's one other name too, and from a rookie standpoint, and it is a tricky one because he plays more of the interior than anything else, and that's Tuli Tuipulotu, who against the Bears in a defensive tackle league could be pretty valuable. There's no doubt about that. The pressure, I just want to see, it's tough to ever predict a defensive tackle. That being said, moving on to the final game Monday night, Las Vegas at Detroit. Detroit 8-point home favorites, 46-point implied point total. We just talked earlier, Craig Reynolds being out. Jared Goff starting at home, I think, every time for the most part. But Jahmyr Gibbs, is this a reflection and continuation from last week's Jahmyr Gibbs, Preston?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. He'll get to work until Montgomery get back. He'll look good until Gump gets back.
Yep. And then it's going to be disappointment because Montgomery will regain that role.
Yep.
Kyle, I'm going to let you answer this question real quick. Half point PPR flex, Deontay Foreman or Miles Sanders, Jerry Jeudy, AJ Dillon?
So Judy and Dillon right off the bat, hell no. So it comes down to Foreman or Sanders. Oh, man. This is tough. This is actually pretty tough. I'm going to go with Miles Sanders just for the volume because we talked about 50-50 split there in Chicago. I know Chuba's there, but Miles Sanders, it's his backfield.
Fair enough. Jimmy G's back in, but Jimmy G's not going to be starting. Josh Jacobs, I think, probably a volume-based running back too. Devontae Adams has really kind of crapped the bed, but there's always a case to be made against the Detroit secondary that allows a lot of passing yards. But Jacoby Myers, with Jimmy G back, you guys, Preston, are you putting him back in as your wide receiver 3, 2, maybe even? Wheels up, baby. Let's go. Amon-Ra is definitely on the Detroit side. Outside of Amon-Ra, I don't think there's anybody else, that I'm even comfortable outside of Sam Laporta. And we talked about Michael Mayer in this matchup as far as the streaming options go.
No Jameson.
That's a question. I'm out on Jameson just simply because I don't think I haven't seen enough consistent volume. The big play dependency has me worried. Jorge Hollywood. All right. Let's go defense side of the ball. Vegas for you, Jorge. Max Crosby's a must start. Devon Diablo's out.
Yep. I love Trayvon Morig. I think he's been playing lights out. Box snaps have been there. Fantasy production has been there. So I think he's reaching DB2 week in and week out status for me. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Detroit, outside of Aiden Hutchinson for you, Hollywood.
Yeah, if that is what I hate to say it, you got to have Anzalone in there, right? Somewhere. Not like a top tier, but if you're getting him like an LB3, I think you got to play him. It's not ideal. It's not what we want to hear, but and I think Jack Campbell's. He's worth a play in a deep league too. So I just don't know what to do with their safeties because they have so many.
Yeah, I don't trust any of them. I like Brian Branch as far as like an actual player too, and his production has been spotty. But I just don't know if I trust Vegas to promote a slot production that's just I don't know, inconsistent at best. But that is the IDP side of the ball. I didn't talk earlier, but for Vegas, if you happen to have Daniel Carlson, he's out as a kicker, which is the first kicker we've mentioned so far on the show. Nice. Divine Diablo is out. Marcus Peters and Nate Hobbs, both limited practices. Something to pay attention to for the Detroit passing game. That probably improved. That could lead to maybe a Jameson Williams uptick, but more likely with Hobbs in the slot, that probably means Sam Laporta is going to see even less concerning work. David Montgomery, Craig Reynolds, and Frank Ragnow all out. And that wraps up the NFL slate for Week 8. I will say that this is by far one of the more, fun Sundays because we don't have any buys to worry about. Football all day spread out. A pie bet to pay attention to. A snow game in Denver. And one final question from Josh. Joe Burrow or CJ Stroud, and Carr or Russ. So first option there, Burrow or Stroud. Jorge, go around the frame.
I think I'm going Stroud and then Russ.
Stroud and Russ. Hollywood.
Ooh. Stroud and Carr.
Okay. Preston.
Stroud and Russ.
Kyle.
Tighten up, baby. Stroud and Carr.
And I will go Stroud and Carr to finalize that. And so, Josh, that is good. Good luck. Giroux, thank you again for being here. We'll see you next week. Guys, again, as we say every single week, we know thank you very much for all of your efforts for being here this morning with me as much as I drag these out, unfortunately, we'll let you get to your lineups. But before we do, please, if you're listening, jump over to fantasyandframes.com. Check out all the rankings, YouTube channels. On Wednesday nights, you will see about 17 hours consecutive of podcast form. Of course, this morning, Tuesday nights, you'll see the waiver wire show. Thursday night is the mailbag show. This Sunday, as you know, you just got done watching 3.5 straight hours of pregame show talk. So for Hollywood, for Preston, for Kyle, for Jorge, I'm Nate. We will see you in week 9.
Good luck.